Hello. Can you hear me? Just what in the hell is going on? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. In about a couple minutes, in like three minutes, I'm gonna join in on Midwestern Marx, Eddie Smith, and we're gonna, I don't know what we're gonna talk about, but we're just gonna have a discussion. So I figured I'd stream it while we do. I wish I wasn't wearing these clunky headphones. I wonder if I can fix that. Like, why do I need to wear headphones, you know? It's like so not at all. $335,000 people, huh? The Edinburgh estimates. What do? You throw a Molotov cocktail through the window. What else could you do? Okay, I will. I'm about to hang out with me. We're about to talk with Eddie Liger Smith. All right, no frames dropped, so that's good. It's pretty much 4 p.m., so. And I'm backstage. That's cool. We're fucking backstage right now. We're some backstage bitches. I might need to use my headphones. Will y'all will the fashion police get me if I have to use my headphones? Hey!
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you at first. You can wear headphones, yeah, don't worry.
Yeah, I was just hoping I didn't have to. Let me see if I want to be able to still hear you and, you know. What's up, big dog?
How's it going?
It's all right. How are you?
Yeah, really excited to be doing this. I appreciate you coming out.
Absolutely. I'm glad we finally got an opportunity to do so. Are we live right now?
No.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, I plan we can go live here.
Whenever, dude. I was streaming actually, and I was having some issues with my frame rate, so I was freaking out because I knew we had to about to do this. So I was on the phone with my internet provider, and we hopefully got it worked out. I'm not dropping any frames anymore, and yeah, I was just gonna like share the like while we're doing the interview or whatever, conversing. I was gonna share the stream as well on YouTube.
Awesome.
Is that cool?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then I will, like I said, the conversation can be pretty loose. Feel free to just jump in or add whatever you want and take the conversation wherever. But
Sure.
figured we talk about, how you became a socialist and started studying Marxism, got involved with the Palestine struggle, and talk about TikTok and social
Yeah. Yeah, cool. I have all the same questions for you, my friend.
Yeah, feel free to ask.
I mean, I feel like who's interviewing who here?
Right. If you want to interview me and ask any questions.
Yeah, it'd be funny if I just brought out some note cards. Yeah, I do actually. I have.
All the things I've been canceled for over the years.
Okay, wait.
Just let me know whenever you're ready.
Yeah. I want to see if I can. I'm gonna share my screen. So I want to make sure the people that are like on my stream right now can see everything. So let me just fix that. It'll take me like 2 minutes.
No worries.
Okay. And guys, if y'all want to just go over to Midwestern Marx's page, everybody here can just go to the actual YouTube in case we have some sort of technical issues. But let's see. Let me make sure that the screen capture is catching the audio. So let's go back.
I haven't figured out how to do this yet, so you might have to teach me.
There we go. Actually, I was waiting. You talking. I think it's picking up now. They can hear as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So now they can see. So you guys, I don't know. Before we get started, I could just tell them like go follow Midwestern Marx on YouTube if you're not already. I'm sure you guys are. Everybody knows. I feel like we, cross pollinate, if you will.
Definitely.
So yeah, I'm ready whenever you are, man.
All right, cool. I will go live. Then we have a little. I'll introduce you and let you tell people where to find you, and then we got a little intro, and then we can get into it.
Okay, sure.
Cool. All right, going live. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Midwestern Marx live broadcast. I'm here for a very special episode today. We have the Marxist-Leninists of TikTok together. I'm talking to Comrade Rathbone here. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll let you introduce yourself and tell people where to find you quick before we play the intro.
Right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm
just,
sorry.
Just so they know where to follow you.
Yeah,
I'm sure everyone already does.
I'm Rathbone, and I am on, TikTok at Rathbone Makes Music, and also YouTube. I'm really, I've been sort of pivoting away from TikTok and streaming more recently. So I've been trying to increase my audience on YouTube as well as Twitch. I'm actually streaming this as well, so we're kind of doing a joint interview, if you will, but. Yeah, so I'm on YouTube, Rathbone, and then on Twitch as Rathbone as well. So those are the 3 main spots, I guess, that I frequent.
Absolutely. If you're not following him on YouTube and Twitch, make sure you do. I know that can be frustrating when people follow you on TikTok and not the other platforms. So help our boy get his YouTube off the ground. But
yeah,
we'll get into this right after the intro.
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said. You look like a Russian, you look like a red.
right. What'd you think of that intro? I know you're a musician yourself.
That was sick, man. I was like loving all of that. I was like, all my heroes right there. That was cool.
Right?
Very nice editing.
Great. Thank you. That was a Jesus Motorcycle. You guys can follow Jesus Motorcycle on TikTok if you want to see more of his work. He put that together for us, kind of based off the True Detective intro. But
Yeah. Who was the singer, the artist?
I don't know. It was Tom Paxton is the guy who wrote that song originally, and it honestly might have been like an AI translation of it. But
It's very 60s, like folk vibes.
right. Yeah, Paxton was a folk singer. He's really, really great. He's got a good song about the Vietnam War as well.
Okay.
Kind of an underrated artist, yeah. Do
Cool
you still
stuff.
make music? Are you still involved in that?
Not really as much anymore, you know. I've ever since I pivoted to like making a TikTok account. Before that I was making music, political music, but I actually incidentally got banned on TikTok for my music videos of all things. So then I was like, I never really liked TikTok, to be honest with you. I never really thought much of it. But I don't know, I got to a point where I just wanted to speak about these things, and I had never felt like it before. I always wanted to do something creative with the knowledge, that I was acquiring. But at the time, I just felt like, I don't know, call it burnout of, making all these songs, and I just wanted to do something different. So to my surprise, just making these videos, it started to get engagement, and then I noticed that people were commenting, and then you could reply to their comment, and I just thought that was a really cool idea. And so I just, wanted to make myself visible and share these ideas that I was, learning, and it sort of just grew from there. But yeah, not so much music anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, TikTok's I go back and forth on whether I like it or not. I don't use it too much anymore for like viewing content, but it is great because it allows things to blow up. When the app was still totally controlled by China, it was a lot better. But I must say, you are one of the most prolific TikTok posters I've ever seen. Like, you're constantly pumping out these good skits. You're constantly putting out, good information. It's very obvious that, you're reading theory and studying stuff on a deeper level, too. Plus, you respond to people when they, take jabs at you. A lot of times I just don't even deal with that. I don't want to deal with these clowns like Crack Span on TikTok. But you take these people down.
Well,
how do you have the energy and motivation for all that?
I don't anymore. Early on, I was like, oh, this guy wants to talk shit to me? Okay, let's go. All right. It was never, I sort of took it as a challenge, because I think, when your convictions are tested, that's when you should stick by them and speak in no uncertain terms. And so, but I think that you're being a bit modest, because I've seen you go after other content creators, and, rightfully so. And I've always appreciated you doing that as well. But I don't know, I just feel like sort of the name of the game is to get into these little spats with people. It's kind of fun too. You want to do it in an artful kind of way. You want to give the information. I always try to like make it educational and like give the information, but also maybe do a little fuck you too as well. Like,
Right.
It'd be a little petty, because it'd make it a little funny, a little entertaining for people as well.
Absolutely. I had somebody tell me today that I needed to read more because I was making the arguments too personal, and I pulled up that quote where it was Marx talking about Bakunin, and he was like, he's become a giant lump of flesh and fat.
Oh, see, so Bakunin was talking shit. Wait, was it Marx talking shit about Bakunin, or Bakunin?
Bakunin was talking shit about Marx,
Oh,
and
okay.
then Marx said that Bakunin's become this giant mass of flesh and fat. Like,
They were doing ad hominems too, you see? If it was good enough for them. No, I especially, when people try to come at me with these purity tests, like I'm supposed to be okay with being gaslit, and then when that incites a pejorative response or a negative response, I'm somehow the bad guy. But I really don't even go after people, really, unless they come after me, first. I think it's better to just, like you, I've noticed, is just to stick to the ideas. I want to speak above all the noise. I want to communicate, facts and history and evidence, and I really appreciate that from your page. And that was, even before I got on TikTok, I've told you that I was a fan of you on Instagram. I was on Instagram, obviously a lot longer, but so yeah, when I like I said, when I caught your attention on TikTok, I was like, all right, I must be doing something right.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's rare, like, before TikTok was handed over to Oracle, which is like a CIA front company basically in Texas, when it was still largely controlled by China, there was a huge socialist presence on the app. And for people who don't know, over 300,000 accounts were deleted, mostly because of the Russian SMO, and they were accused, accounts like mine were accused of being Russian propaganda. But there were a lot of socialists on the app, but it was very rare to see a Marxist-Leninist or someone who had really been diving deep into theory, or who was unafraid to take the positions against liberalism that you consistently take. So yeah, the more of your videos I saw, the more I was like, oh wow, he's super based, because sometimes people do a video that you agree with, and then you dig a little deeper into their account, and you're like, they're kind of a lib. But
yeah,
the more I dug into yours, the more I was like, all right.
Same, dude.
There's more of us. Yeah. So how did you become a socialist in the first place?
That's a good question. I think, for the longest, I think by degree is what I would say. By degree over time. For the longest time in my life, I was, shamelessly, or shamefully, I should say, a liberal. Although I didn't think of it in those terms, and you never do. You never see it until you're away from it. So I had to get some perspective, I think. But I for the longest time, I said, certainly there must be some sort of justification for the way things are, and it must be beyond me. Society must just be too complex, and I better not get involved, which is a very, it's like that whole, even being anti-political is a political stance. So I was a privileged liberal in that regard. And then, everybody that asks me this question, I always go back to COVID really changing things for me. And I don't know if it's just specifically because it might have had to do with two things. The fact that we had that lockdown, and so I'm pouring into YouTube videos and thinking about, politics, and I just started to become more interested in that for that reason, because there's nothing else to do, I guess. And then also just where I was, I guess, in my life at that point, So, we're all like looking for answers, I feel like, to explain why things are the way that they are. And so I just, I would say COVID was sort of the turning point. And then I started becoming, interested in, like Marx and, just political books, Noam Chomsky was like a huge, like that, like when I first discovered his work, I was like, my mind like shit its pants. And then, it's not like I was a Marxist Leninist. I even would have cringed at that term, like 4 years ago. I was like, to ascribe my person, like, I still was like, no labels for me, thank you. But so I don't know. It's been a journey, I guess is what I should say. But I'm here now. I embrace all Marxism, Leninism. I think it's all you got to embrace an ideology, and even being anti-ideology is still embracing an ideology. It's inescapable. So no, communism is what we have. This is the best. This is what we this is our. Not to ramble or not to rant, but it's like there's only one opposite to capitalism. It's not like there can be another way that it's like socialism, communism. And once you understand that capitalism is the private ownership of public resources, et cetera, then there can only be one opposite to that can confront that. That can be the material opposition to that. And so that's why we embrace the opposition as communists, I guess. But I should also, can we flip it around? Because, like, could I ask you, like, what was your journey? Because, you're a wrestler. You're not supposed to be into politics. You're a sports guy,
Right.
You're supposed to be a typical meathead. You don't know what you're...
Right. I'm just going to go vote for Trump and...
Yeah, exactly.
Call it a day. No, I think, and honestly, there's every wrestling tournament I go to now. This didn't used to be the case, but every time I go now, there's another wrestler who's, you know, a fan of my TikToks and a fan of my
That's
videos.
so cool.
It is cool, and I think it's a product of our material conditions too now, where like kids, you know, aren't seeing a future for themselves really in this society, and even people who, you know, socialists in this country have been traditionally considered not the jocks, not the people who play sports, but, you know, more people who play sports are seeing no economic future for themselves, and they see how backwards and corrupt our system is, and they're taking a stand against it or looking to learn more about it. For me, it was really, my parents were Republicans. I was raised in the evangelical Christian church. They voted for George Bush 2 times because he was pro-life, which we look back at now and just like, how ironic is that they, you know, and my parents have come a long way, but how ironic is it that they voted for the guy who started the Iraq War because they were pro-life?
Yeah, exactly. Mass murdering
He brought
millions of
death
people.
to so many.
Well, that's because there's a set of worthy victims and unworthy victims.
Right.
And unborn white babies are more important than born brown babies.
Yes, we need to prioritize it's like that George Carlin joke. When you're in the womb, we'll protect you. When you're out of the womb, you're on your own.
Absolutely.
You're fucked.
Yeah, George Carlin's based.
He is. But after that was 2008. Obviously, the financial crash happened. That wasn't great. But right after that, there was a Koch brothers funded governor in Wisconsin where I was growing up and where my dad was a public school teacher named Scott Walker. And I've since learned that Scott Walker was like the Koch brothers' favorite. He was their favorite politician because he had like no backbone. He would just do whatever they said. So he completely tried to cut the teacher's salary, $5,000, which he did, and bust up the public unions, which he was also successful in. And what he did, and what Fox News and the Koch brothers funded media did, was they preyed upon the fact that the private sector unions had been crushed in the 1990s in Wisconsin. So all these private sector workers had their collective bargaining rights destroyed. Obviously, their wages and benefits got worse. And then the government and the Republican media turned around and said, you know whose fault that is? It's the public sector workers. So they pitted the private and the public sector workers against each other in order to crush both unions. They said it was to fix Wisconsin's debt, which today is at something like $20-some billion. So they did not fix the debt, whatever that would mean. And the teachers went on strike. They protested, and at that time, Bernie Sanders was starting his 2016 campaign. So that got me interested in politics and got me to see how corrupt the system was. And I was going to college at the time, so I decided to study politics and met my professor who was a pro-China Marxist 8 years ago, and here we are.
Okay. So you got the knowledge. So you cite one of your professors as being influential to you, and also obviously your personal experiences growing up. And yeah, how fitting that they blame the public sector, right? They always do. That's a tale as old as time.
No kidding. Yeah, especially or blame the debt. You know, fearmonger about the debt when every country in the world runs a debt deficit. You know?
Yeah, whenever they talk about the deficit, that's such a euphemism, or it's a cover, right? Like, what are they're just like, I don't know. They always talk about the deficit like that's what we got to be focused on. Like that's literally, it's just like that's the cost of doing business, as I understand it. I mean, you know, like you said, every country runs a debt deficit.
Right, just based on it's because of capitalism,
right?
The way that the credit system works, and then they take that and say, well, we can't have any welfare programs because of the debt.
Yeah,
but we can do endless war spending, of course.
Yeah,
endless money for that.
I've been really interested in just understanding more about how the capitalist economy is organized and what sort of mechanisms they. Like, I really want to have a foolproof answer. Like, for example, I just finished this book, The Everything War, it's Amazon's, like, ruthless quest. It just goes on about, like, all the thing, like, why is Amazon bad, basically, you know? And just all the little legal mechanisms that they have in place and how they fuck not only the customer over, the consumer, the third-party sellers, even within Amazon itself, they're like fucking each other over because they got this cutthroat, mentality, and like different departments will vie over data, and it's all highly competitive. But what's interesting is that it's actually anti-competitive, the way that it's operating its business. But I don't know. I know
It's centrally planned now. The whole economy
Right.
is centrally planned,
Right.
but on a capitalist basis. Like there is still competition between shareholders in different sectors of the economy, like you said. But there's another good book called The People's Republic of Walmart that shows they
Ooh.
know, what products they need to have and how many they're going to sell in every area. Like they have the market basically locked down at this point, which is hilarious because Mises and these other libertarians claim that economic planning is impossible when economic planning has already happened under capitalism. It's
Right.
just planned in order to keep banker profits and shareholder profits at their maximum,
Right.
rather than to maximize public utility.
It's always planned. I mean, capitalism cannot survive without the nanny state. Can't survive without
Right.
a government insurance policy. It's funny because they love to project their own characteristics onto, their political opposition. In this case, socialists are the lazy ones. They're the ones that require government dole, live off the government dole we hear. They're so lazy. Well, that's exactly what. But let's see what happens when the government turns down Amazon for a contract, a government contract to fulfill whatever. Like they did in the pandemic, they gave it to Walmart instead, and Amazon about started World War III because they didn't get awarded that government contract to resupply. What is it? The pandemic like equipment or something. But it's just funny that they love to tout. It's like it's privatize the profits, socialize the losses. That's what it all boils down to. But anyway, I don't know if y'all can hear that. I have some annoying sound alerts. I hope it's not interrupting the stream. But
I don't hear anything.
Okay, cool.
So must be good.
Okay, so now you're a full blown commie. It's it took you what, 8 years? You said after was it? You still wrestle, by the way?
Yes. I actually compete next week.
Oh shit.
So if I seem a little out of it or anything, blame the fact that I'm cutting weight right now. But
Oh, okay.
but yeah, compete in Omaha next week, which will be fun. But I probably became a Marxist-Leninist, or started telling people that 4 or 5 years ago. Like when I got to college, I was actually in high school. I was really into this guy called the Amazing Atheist, who was he's considered maybe part of the quote-unquote alt-right pipeline or whatever, because he does, the feminist wrecked compilations or whatever. But really, as a high schooler, I didn't fall for the people like Ben Shapiro or the people like Gavin McInnes, because they weren't economically left-wing. And what this guy, the Amazing Atheist, was he was culturally right-wing and he was like a Bernie supporter. He wanted free healthcare and stuff. And that made sense to me. Then I got to college, kind of got rid of these weird feminist wreck to right-wing cultural positions that had been put into my brain by YouTube videos and what's become known as the alt-right pipeline. I got really into Kyle Kalinske.
Okay.
So then I was a social democrat for 3 years, and then 2020 Bernie campaign kicked off, and I worked for that campaign. And I met Carlos, who we launched Midwestern Marx during COVID after the campaign ended, and then my buddy who works on the railroad now, who was a Marxist-Leninist. I had the right mentors, I guess. They found me at the right time, and they allowed me to skip the anarchism phase, and kind of move on from social democracy right to Marxism-Leninism, or real orthodox Marxism, not this pseudo-Marxism that's often pushed out in the academy, which we can talk about too. But
Yeah. The whole. So I didn't realize you worked for the Bernie campaign. What exactly, in what capacity?
I was just an intern.
Okay.
Carlos, no, not Carlos. Carlos was a volunteer. Me and my other buddy, who's a communist now as well, worked for the campaign, just mostly door knocking, and really what they wanted us doing was canvassing the colleges in the area, going to get people to vote. And I got like my whole wrestling team to canvass for Bernie, which was cool. Vote for Bernie. And yeah, then that was in the middle of wrestling season, which was interesting too. You know, like going and knocking doors before practice and after practice. It was a lot of work, but it taught me a ton. Not only, yeah, it taught me a ton, like the way that the media basically just swarmed him, and the whole Democratic Party swarmed him just for proposing, you know, mild social democratic policies.
Right.
Universal health care. But it also taught me like what's wrong with the Democratic Party, you know, and a lot of the staffers on the Bernie campaigns were just careerists and, you know, social climbers, and I didn't really realize that at the time. I thought everybody was just, you know, trying to get health care for the sake of getting health care, but
they're just trying to get a good position. They're trying to get well positioned to be somebody in the Democratic Party, I guess.
Exactly. And a lot, you know, I got offered a job with Biden after, and like,
wow,
the guy who was offering me the job like couldn't believe that I was saying no. You know, I know this isn't with your principles, but that you can put this on your resume forever. I'm like, I don't want that. I don't care.
I know that would be such an albatross around your neck at this point. If you, see, not to say that you couldn't have said, "Hey, look, yeah, that's where I was in this at this time," but you know, I've changed my thinking. But yeah, that was such a sham, don't you think, that Bernie didn't get the nomination when it was some backdoor back channeling happening at the DNC, and I'm sure that must have been, I don't know, heart-wrenching, depending on how, you know, involved you were with that, to see that, because he seemed like the popular candidate at the time, and obviously the higher-ups said no.
Dude, and the national news didn't even cover what happened in Iowa. Like, I've got videos on my channel explaining this, but like, everybody saw the Democrats, you know, they saw the DNC collaborate with the Clinton campaign, and they saw the Democrats drop out on before Super Tuesday and endorse Biden. And now it's known that Pete Buttigieg didn't want to drop out because he was still polling pretty well, and they had Obama call him up and say, Pete, you need to drop out, do this for the Democrats, do this for Joe. We can't have Bernie be the nominee. We need to beat Trump, blah, blah, blah. So that's what got Pete to drop out and helped Biden get this big, you know, landslide, shocking win on Super Tuesday that pushed him ahead of Bernie. But in Iowa, it was even worse, dude. There was the app that they used to count the votes was from a company called Shadow. It was literally called Shadow Inc. And they were connected to the Buttigieg campaign, like funders of the Buttigieg campaign. And Pete had put all of his money into Iowa because it was the first state. So he basically put all of his bets on winning Iowa, and hopefully that'll give him enough momentum to then do better in the rest of the country where he was polling not well enough to win. So on the day of the vote, all of our internal polling at the Bernie campaign tells us that we won. And you know, if you go look at the election results now, Bernie won the most delegates. He won the most votes. The only thing that Pete won was this thing called state delegates, which mean nothing. They don't matter. They don't affect the election at all. But Pete won these state delegates, this meaningless count. So the app by the Shadow Inc. company crashes on the day that they're supposed to count the votes. So we're sitting at this bar waiting to hear that we won, and hours and hours and hours go by and they're not announcing it. And this is huge because the whole reason why Iowa is important is it's the first state in the primary, so you get a media boost. If you win, the media is hyping you up. So they took that away from Bernie by not announcing that he won. And then after the app crashed, the Pete campaign declared victory, and the media touted him as the winner of Iowa, even though he had less votes and less delegates. And it was just like, watching, I was like, wow, they're never gonna let us win one of these elections.
Right.
They won't even let this Bernie guy through. You think they're gonna let a communist through?
Of course not. Yeah. Could they be any more obvious too?
Right.
That's pretty wild. I didn't know like all the details around it, but it seemed pretty obvious. But what do you think happened to Bernie? Is he there's just a muzzle on him now, and he's just completely steamrolled and turned into something we don't recognize?
I think it took his soul.
They took his soul? Yeah.
That 2020 campaign took his soul.
Yeah.
That's the only.
That was right. That was his moment right there.
And people say he was always like this. He lived in Israel when he was younger. Like he has always been a Zionist, a labor Zionist or whatever, which is still supporting an ethno state. But Yeah, I think he's become like a complete sheepdog. I just think he's broke. I don't think he has
He
any
needs the
fight
money.
left in him.
By the way, I have to tell you that when I found out that you started Midwestern Marx and that there was this, organization that was, geared towards spreading, Marxist education, I thought that was just so cool. And it paired exactly with what I was reading at the time in this book, which was asking similar questions like where are our labor, education? Where's the labor education system? Where's our universities dedicated to the working class? And why don't we learn these things? Like, we've been completely prevented from, learning about our labor movement and our class history and all the tactics. I still maybe you have more information on this. I still want to learn a lot about the 1930s, because I hear that was a really lively time. That's when like communists really were like at the fore, and they forced FDR to like make all these concessions, like the New Deal. I think, as I understand it, was like was basically communists and socialists organizing to force the president's hand.
Yeah, it was a result of class struggle. It was
Yeah.
a combination of the fact that, I mean, the CPUSA claimed they had 1 million members at the time. It's probably less than that, but over 100,000 members, which is crazy compared to what we have today. And then the CPUSA was actually a real functioning communist party back then. So you had that. You had the labor movement, all these strikes in the 1940s as well. After World War II ended, there were more wildcat strikes in the U.S. than at any other point in history, because people wanted to keep the gains. The workers wanted to keep the gains that they had made in World War II, when there was this expansion of industry, which, central economic planning, the government using central economic planning to invest in infrastructure, and it gave all these people new jobs, even though they were producing weapons. So
Can I interject with the phrase Keynesian economics and sound like a smart guy? Is that basically what you're
Please
talking?
do. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And so Keynesianism, yeah, basically revitalized the U.S. economy, and they wanted to keep the gains that they had made. And then the other thing is the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
The U.S. felt the pressure of the Soviet Union, where if our workers had worse conditions than their workers, then that would prove that socialism is superior. So that was part of the Cold War rivalry. So the U.S. created this Keynesian welfare state to take care of people, and since beginning in the 60s, 70s, and then really taking off with Ronald Reagan, Clinton, is the era of neoliberalism and
Right.
the crushing of the organized labor.
Right. So, what was your main? I mean, was your main motivation starting the what was your? I guess you said you started with Carlos, your friend, and y'all started Midwestern Marx together. And what was the main like thesis there? The motivation was just to start a institution devoted to Marxist education, I guess. I mean, that's what y'all did. So.
Right, yes, that was the goal from the beginning. I mean, it started kind of as a paper, like we were going to do a journal.
Okay.
And then I started doing the TikToks, and those just happened to blow up, when I was bored during COVID. And that kind of has been the basis, for building up the Institute itself.
Yeah, I mean, it took me honestly, it took me months to realize that there were other people involved, because you were just like the face of it, So like I just associated, okay, he's this Midwestern guy and he loves Marx and he's sharing and he's educating people, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, you have classes and everything, right? I mean, you have people that sign up and how many TikTok pages have you created? I feel like by the time seven
now.
And you still rise. You got like hundreds of thousands of followers every time.
Can't stop us. I would have millions right now.
I bet, man. That's so shitty.
Bad,
I feel like they just manufacture. It's like I get shadow banned. I feel like I'm perpetually shadow banned on TikTok now. It's not even. It's lost its whatever. Like, I don't even really feel like posting, because I don't feel like anybody's gonna see it anyway. So.
Bro, and the amount of like Philip DeFranco videos that are still up and that are just blatant missing. Like, he's got a video that's still up claiming that Russia blew up Nord Stream. You know, it's like, that's misinformation. That's a fucking lie. It's been proved to be a lie. Why is he allowed to say that and go viral?
Right. And the idea that they're going to blame that on Ukraine now? I mean, as if Ukraine has the same capabilities. As I understand it, the United States is the only country that was even capable of pulling that off. But
right, and if Ukraine did it, it's with U.S. weapons,
right,
like, and with the support of U.S. intelligence.
Exactly, and you'd think that more people would be smart like us two that would understand that the United States is at war with Russia via the proxy war in Ukraine. But people just, you're just a Kremlin apologist, dude. You just you love Putin somehow. I don't get it. It's just,
that was how I
means.
really knew you were based. The SMO. I was like, okay, this guy gets it. And of course, then all the people come out. You're a Putin puppet.
Yeah.
You're a tanky, blah blah blah, and you're just like, I don't give a shit. What I'm saying is true.
Yeah, it's nothing you haven't heard either, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the same, which is nice, because at first I felt like it was, just me. Like, I was the only big, real Marxist account on the app, but it's cool now to see other people pushing the same thing. When did you become aware of Palestine specifically?
I feel like, that's a good question. I think through reading and listening to Noam Chomsky for since 2020 and then into 2021. I remember something had happened in 2020 where there was a rally and I happened to be in LA, or there was like a protest about Palestine, and I went to that as well. And I had always just, ever since I knew about Palestine, I knew that it was an example of United States imperialism ultimately, and that there was a genocide basically happening there, and how awful. Like I sort of understood that to be similar to what was happening in Yemen, which, as I understand it, was the worst humanitarian crisis before October 7th. I guess they trade off on who's the number one worst humanitarian crisis. Is it Gaza or is it Yemen? But I always understood that it was Israel was awful, but it took October 7th for me to really go into because I just understood when it happened, like, this is an important thing that's happening. I really want to pour into the details of it. And I had written up until that point, like, if you followed my page before October 7th, there were times when I mentioned Palestine and Yemen and, how awful Israel is. And I even wrote songs that mentioned it as well. But obviously, when October 7th happened, I was like, I really want to understand. And that's, I'd already had sort of a platform and some engagement, so I felt like I took it upon myself to really know the details. And I heard about Norman Finkelstein. I know he wrote a book called The Holocaust Industry, which I haven't read, but I hear is really good.
You gotta read it.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, but I will. And also another one I want to read is How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. I hear that's a classic. I haven't read that one either. But yeah, so I just poured into Gaza by Norman Finkelstein. I was like, oh my God, like, I've learned more about this conflict in the past 3 pages than I have entirely from any corporate media, obviously. But that's not saying much. But
right.
I like how we got our bookshelves in the back,
Yeah, I'm trying to find my copy of Gaza right now. I don't know why I can't find it as you're talking, but that's a fantastic book. I had I had always, oh, there it is. Finkelstein's Gaza.
There it is.
That one?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Now I got to go show mine to show I'm for real too.
Right.
I don't know where it is.
That's a hard copy.
But yeah, that's it. Yeah. I thought his book was magnificent, so heavily resourced, and just, I love when you have your sources, I love primary source evidence. It's indisputable, and I like to throw that in my videos. So I really needed to know the details. Where did it come from? Who's saying this? So I could also just shoplift it all and use it as my own talking points as well, which I still do. And I think, who has explained the situation in the past 2 decades better than Norman Finkelstein about what's happening right now? And so I just started making pro-Palestine content, and then I started to get more people to the page, and it would just seem so plain. It seems so obvious what was going on. How could you not, you know,
Right.
show what's going on? And like, is anybody lost on this? Like, this is not complex at all, you know. So it just I wanted to put it all into the, you know, do it in the style of the sketches that I was doing, and it worked. I think, you know, people have, you know, told me that it helped them understand, and but so you've been working with Midwestern Marx for a number of years, and then tell me about the ACP. What?
Yeah, I got my
There it
ACP
is.
shirt on. Someone was asked. Thank you for the super chats, everyone. By the way, I know Spooky Scary Marxist is on TikTok. He's been looking
Yeah, I
forward
know
to this for a
Spooky.
long time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
so much.
Spooky.
Got Borscht Bandit here. Great to see content creators come together and build bridges and foster unity. Absolutely, that's
Hell
what
yeah.
we're here for. Borscht Bandit, thank you. And then Slava would love to know what your guest thinks of ACP. Slava's a member of the ACP Politburo. Yeah,
Okay.
I was a member of the Communist Party USA, CPUSA, for a paper member, I should say, for a number of years. I don't want to act like I was active and working within the party, because I was not, because anytime I would show up to a party meeting, it would just be an hour-long lecture about why we need to support Democrats and work on Democratic campaigns and why the Democratic Party is best. And I knew it was aimed at me because I'm pushing out anti-Democratic Party TikToks. But basically, the conflict within CPUSA surrounding the Democrats came to a head at the 2024 convention, because there was a vote on whether or not to support the Democrats. And what the leadership did was they did. I mean, we've covered this extensively on the YouTube if people want to look into it. But basically, the leadership they did a voice vote rather than an actually counted vote. And then they claimed that it was a tie, and in the case of a tie, the decision goes to the leadership, and the leadership are all pro-Democratic Party. So the party continues to be an appendage of the Democrats, and that was a sign for a lot of people in the rank and file that there's no way to reform this. Like, the leadership has got it locked up at the top. They're pro-Democrats. Who knows if they're feds or not, but they serve the same purpose. They've captured the CPUSA and made it an appendage of the Democrats. So
Gross.
at this point, we had a big collective of people behind the scenes who were looking to change this, who were desperate to make the CPUSA into a real communist party, so we could push all of these followers we have on TikTok and YouTube and stuff into a real organ that could really get them organizing workplaces and communities. But that didn't exist so far as we saw it in the U.S. So with that CPUSA convention and things coming to a head, we decided to do what people have been asking us to do for years, and finally launch a party, which we see as the true inheritor of the communist legacy in the United States. Like, the legacy of CPUSA is the legacy of the American communists. They used to be a serious, real party until the last 2 decades, especially in the Sam Webb era, who's now, he left, he's not a communist anymore. He's the leader of the Communist Party, and now he's a member of the Democratic Party and denounces communism. And that was the guy leading it for a decade. So they completely destroyed the CPUSA, but we needed a real serious capital C Communist Party based on Marxist-Leninist ideology. And, you know, there are some, you're always going to have smears and attacks when you launch a party. There are a lot of genuine concerns that people had, which I'm always happy to address and debunk. I know people always seem to be hyper concerned with MAGA communism, which that's nothing to do with our party. It's not in our party platform. Our party is just Marxist-Leninist. MAGA communism was just a strategy created for reaching MAGA people with communism from like 2 years ago. But ACP is a Marxist-Leninist party, not a MAGA communist party.
Yeah.
People always ask that, so I feel like I got to say it.
No, I you know, I had no idea that the CPUSA basically endorsed the Democratic Party. That just seems so counter principle, like unprincipled, I guess I should say.
Insane. And they send people to work for Democratic campaigns. So you have all these people who want to fight for communism, and they're getting put in. CPUSA is a house of mirrors that just runs them in a circle and tells them that the revolution's coming if they keep working for Democrats.
Were people saying that the same rhetoric towards the CPUSA as they did with ACP, that it's MAGA communism? Is CP, were they giving that to CPUSA?
No, that's just because of some of the people associated
Oh,
with
okay.
ACP who were on board with MAGA communism. Yeah, most.
I thought maybe it had to
CPUSA 's
do with the
been-
fact that you're referencing the United States, or that's because it's got the word America in it, that it must be
Oh,
compromised, like a "Make America Great Again" or an American Communist Party, but or the CPUSA. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's I really had no idea. I'm still like, learning. I feel like people are all constantly attacking me because like, oh, you're not organizing, you should be doing this or that, and I feel like I have a lot to learn. I'm learning in real time. I'm basically opening myself up to, as you are, as we all are. We're opening up our lives and our journey, and I am by and large just a music teacher and an educator, and I just decided to make political satire sketches. That's all, and I think of myself as more of an agitator and an educator, and not so much as an organizer. But that's not to say that that's not what I want to ultimately do. I would, love to. I think that's what what we need is to have more organization, and so, and I just think that it boils down to actually keeping our critique to the actual criminals of society, the actual capitalists, not get caught up in all these cultural issues, culture wars. It's like there is a lot of, obviously we know about leftist infighting. It seems very prevalent, and it really puts me off. Like it really is kind of gross when you have the left eating itself. And I just say kudos to you for putting yourself out there and like wanting to. You're always just saying like, look, I'll take on all comers. Like I just want to get the ideas out there, and I think I see that, and I think a lot of people can sift through all the bullshit that comes with having a platform.
yeah.
But-
Thank you. I mean, I believe in the ideas, so that makes it easy, and people
Absolutely.
have said once you read Capital, it's kind of like a shield against bourgeois economics. Like after you finish,
That's another
even
thing.
just
You
the
are
first-
exhaustive in your research on Marx, which I really love, and I can tell you're so well read, way more than I am. And the fact that you somebody asked like, have I read Capital? I've read like maybe the first 50 pages of the first volume, and not to say that I haven't. I don't know. I haven't read it, okay, but I know that you have been documenting you're going through it, right? I mean, did you finish all 3 volumes? Because that is quite an undertaking.
I'm on page 700, some of volume 3. I've
Holy
done volume
shit.
1 twice, volume 2 once, and now doing volume 3 for the
Do you
first time.
do you find is it hard to retain all that? I mean, like, how is your brain not this size now?
I mean, that's what my ears are. It's actually just my
It goes to
brain.
your ears.
No, it's I mean, it's a lot. It's not like memorization though. Like you were saying,
Yeah.
you're trying, and this is kind of what everybody's trying to understand within our system. Is you're trying to figure out how the base of society works, how our mode of production, our economic system operates, and how it functions and why it functions the way it does, and why companies like Amazon act the way they do, and through showing the historical development of capitalism and through tracing the motion of capitalism, Marx really shows the tendencies and the motion of the system. And even though it was written in the 1800s, if you read volume 3, everything he's saying is relevant because it's an analysis of currency and the credit system. So big finance,
Fictitious
which is
capital.
what it completely dominates our system today, even more so than industrial capital. So he made all these insane predictions by analyzing the field of economics with the dialectical materialist worldview. Like Marx really, once he meets Engels tells him he needs to study economics, political economy, and then before that he had already sort of developed dialectical and historical materialism. And then
Okay.
he just starts applying it to different fields, including anthropology, which is what Engels' Origins of Family, Private Property, and the State is, another great book. But it really helps you understand the structure of the system and where the system came from. Like, we didn't just invent capitalism or make it up. I mean, it'd be almost impossible to invent a system as stupid and backwards as the one we have now. It's something that developed over time through transitions out of different modes of production, like slavery and feudalism. I know you mentioned a purity at one point. This is a little bit of a sidetrack.
Go
but
ahead.
If you haven't read this yet, this is Carlos's book, The Purity Fetish and the Crisis of Western Marxism.
Cool.
It is a book that is specifically intended to diagnose the problems with the American left, which are the reasons that we started Midwestern Marx. Because, like you said, we wanted to unify people around, anti-genocide, anti-imperialism, and pro-working class struggle, and kind of leave the cultural stuff aside and understand that we can have disagreements with people and still fight for the working class or still fight against imperialism. So Carlos systematized our ideas about that, our critiques
awesome.
of the Western left. And this book it's our bestseller by a lot. People tend to like it.
I didn't even know you sold books. That's great. I will order a copy, most definitely, and give it a gander. But
It's very short.
that's so cool. Yeah, because one thing that's beautiful about Marxism is that we speak to the material conditions of people, and that's the unifier. And I think about Chris Smalls starting an Amazon labor union. He didn't care if you were a Trump MAGA. He didn't care if you didn't speak to those things. You speak to what the material conditions of their working lives were. And that's how he galvanized and was able to create the first labor union for Amazon, give them a middle finger. I mean, that's pretty awesome. It's like David taking on Goliath. And, there's a strategy there. And I think, we need more of that, speaking to class-based issues, not cultural issues. And I think also something that I've learned, and I think Lenin proved this, as I understand it, that real power comes from the economy, from the material power that you have over the economy, and not necessarily like in the book. In this book, John Womack talks about how the first Communist International, which was headed by Marx, was very much. They still were thinking that you could elect socialist leaders and you could achieve socialism through reform. And Lenin in the second Communist International basically turned that on its head, if I understand that correctly, that real power comes from, like a vanguard party that's enacting control over the economy. And it's really, it takes revolution, in other words. You're not going to be able to reform your way out of capitalism. And, and then I started reading like Stalin and Mao. Yeah, State and I have exactly that copy. Right.
Nice.
Great book. I've read that a couple of times. Sometimes I read on stream if you guys are interested, by the way. That's, of course, I usually just people go to sleep, but I enjoy it. But yeah, Chris Smalls is a giga chad for sure.
He is.
But I think it's it was a beautiful sentiment to, and it's something I read from Stalin and Mao that, what drives the material life of society? Well, it's the productive forces. It's the economic mode of production. And not only that, your relation to the mode of production, which determines all of your political and social ideas about society. It all boils down to the economy. And so I think that's where real change comes. It's by choking the capitalist's ability to derive a profit. It's like you have to speak in their language. They only understand dollars and cents. And that's why I love the Houthis. I always say, shout out to my homeboys. I want to be a Yemeni pirate one day. It's my dream. It's not too late for me. But, they're disrupting the global supply chain and doing what every responsible nation should be doing, which is imposing a partial blockade on a country that's committing war crimes. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I feel like domestically, if we could have more Houthi mentality in the United States, as a working class, disrupting the supply chain, more labor strikes and activities, and empowering the working class in any way that you can do that. I don't know that
I mean,
yeah.
that's the thing that so many non-Western anti-imperialist groups, at least the successful ones, understand, is that you need unity. And here in the left, or here in the West, we have so many people who will cancel you if you say one wrong thing, you know, about cultural issues or whatever. And it's like, if we were in Yemen, we wouldn't have that option. You know, we would
No.
have to join together and fight or die. Same with
Yep.
Palestine. And you know, that's just what, you know, I it's like babies are being beheaded. You know, we have more important things to fight about than, you know, like bathrooms, which, you know, dominated like politics and the global news for like months. Who can go in what bathrooms? Like, what the hell are we talking about?
Yeah.
People are being, little kids are being beheaded by the thousand. But I have to be a theory nerd for 1 second.
Please.
Here. You're correct that Lenin makes the argument in this that you can't just take hold of the ready-made state machinery. You can't just take hold of the capitalist machinery.
Yeah.
He says instead the machinery needs to be crushed by a revolution and rebuilt as a worker state. But that idea did actually originate with Marx and Engels.
Okay.
Lenin draws that from Marx and Engels. They developed that idea after the failure of the Paris Commune.
Yes.
So
yes.
that happens,
You're
and
right.
then they go, oh,
Yeah.
the state's just going to crush us unless we seize it.
Yeah, that was a point that I've read before about how Marx was actually like a thinking human being. Like, he actually studied history and current events and was able to tinker with his theories and change according to whatever historical events made themselves, happened, I guess is what I should say. But for sure. I think that, but wasn't like, Lenin, was like, Marx was correct in his time, Lenin was correct for his social conditions, Mao was correct for his specific social conditions. Like, that was something that I've learned, that like, Mao even talks about this. Not to say that I'm a Maoist, because apparently Maoists are like weird people, but
yeah, it's weird. Mao would not like the Mao.
Yeah, right. So I feel like that too. It's like he's like written like oppose book worship, and then like all the Maoists are like book worshiping. But anyway, but yeah, he was like, for Marx, that was the social conditions of his time. He interpreted them correctly. For Lenin, this is what he got right, because they had by that point, ascended to imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. And in order to change society, you have to contend with it. You have to actually be there. You have to like deal with. You have to be physically there. And so I hold off. I don't judge third world, political parties or resistance movements who are fighting against imperialism, because like, who am I? I'm like, I'm not living in those social conditions. So how can I say that whatever strategies they adopt are right or wrong necessarily? I mean, we can, we can Monday morning quarterback it, I guess, but
right. And that's what all these things should be looked at as experiments.
Yeah.
And you're a normal socialist who supports existing socialist countries and sees them as experiments. No, they weren't perfect, but they provided a lot of things that capitalism didn't. They outpaced capitalism in terms of industrial development, and they did so without slavery and all these horrible things that capitalism required. Like, there's all these amazing things that socialism accomplished, despite real failures that did exist within each specific socialist and system. But like, if you look at how like you said, Marx and Engels were constantly looking at what happened around them and then tinkering with their theory. Okay, this is the Paris Commune. Let's study. Like, Marx spent so much time studying the Paris Commune because it was this, workers' uprising, and he wanted to know why it failed, how it failed, and how it could have been successful. And Lenin actually threw like a party, a big celebration when the Russian Revolution turned as old as the Paris Commune. When the Russian Revolution lasted longer than the Paris Commune, it's like, holy shit, we learned from the past. But then you have all these socialists, so-called socialists in the West, who are like, the Soviet Union, not real socialism. China, not real socialism. All this stuff is fake socialism. Don't learn anything from it. But I'm a Marxist, though. It's like, do you know how deeply Marx would be looking into these existing socialist
countries? That's a good point.
What they did well and what they didn't.
Absolutely. And to think that
that's where we draw our experience from.
And that's a point that Parenti brings up, is you think about what an achievement it was for the Soviet Union to go from a backward peasant society that was under Tsarist rule, that hadn't industrialized, literally part of the third world, and they became a global superpower in 70 plus years. That's quite an achievement. And once I heard that, I was like, oh, because unlike you, Edward, I went through an anarchist phase. I was like, ooh, Stalin, Lenin. I should read Lenin, really? Gross. But I got over that, thankfully. I'm a better man today. But yeah, no, it's actually like it's a great what a great source of knowledge to read from people that actually went and did it. They didn't just theorize; they contended with it, and that's why we should take heed of what they said.
Right. If you're a socialist who doesn't want to learn from what socialists have done in practice, I mean, that's what Lenin says theory is. He says theory is the collective experience of the international working class taken in general. So we take the experience of every country, we condense it into, written theory so that we can learn from each other. And if we're not learning from the countries who have actually had successful revolutions, as we sit here in the heart of the empire that's destroying all of these revolutions, like how stupid and chauvinistic and backwards can you get, really? Which, I mean, that's what everyone falls for, though, because that's what they tell you. And what's interesting is, like, you talk about how much you learned from Stalin and Mao. Like, they're probably the best people to read for beginners if you're just getting into this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But beginners don't want to read Stalin and Mao because, ooh, scary,
Yeah,
Stalin
right.
and Mao. So it's kind of hard.
I really like their writing style because it's so simple and it's so direct. And Lenin too, I think, had it as well. Like they're all very much. I really like the no uncertainty. Like this is what it is, and there's so much shit I want to ask you. I feel like like Mao's On Contradiction was like really amazing to read. I reread that from time to time. And what do you think about? What do you think about history and like where we're at now? What do you see for the future? I mean, do you see obviously more of the social conditions deteriorating? Like, is it going to get worse before it gets better? Does it have to get worse before it gets better? Like, I don't know. It's sort of a broad question, but
I don't think it has to, but realistically, it probably will. The collapses of empires usually aren't super pretty.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what we're going through now is what Lenin talks about in his chapter on the decay of imperialism, where he says, basically, you remain a financialized imperialist country long enough, then your industry and things are going to start to decay in the home country, or your industry is going to be outsourced and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what we're seeing in the U.S. A lot of our profit is made through interest payments and through trapping people in debt and just the accumulation of money capital, pure paper. Whereas in China, they understand the difference between money accumulation and real accumulation, the accumulation of industry and real productive forces, which we're seeing, a lot of wiping out of our productive forces while they're advancing faster than any country in history, and
Right.
really shows the difference between hyper-financialized capitalism and socialism. So, it's only a matter of time before Americans realize that they have a superior economic system, but they've been so inundated with McCarthyism. Is it going to take our entire system completely collapsing and people starving before Americans finally realize we need to do something different? I don't know. I see a collapse of the U.S. central government being likely. There's already a crisis of legitimacy where, 17% of people think Congress is doing a good job. Like, there's no consent among the masses. The masses aren't communist yet, but they hate
Right.
the government, so that's got to go somewhere.
It's
And
funny
we could,
that-
have a socialist uprising and fix this country and make it a socialist country, and that would be great. Or we could not, and the whole thing will collapse, and then there will be fighting between different groups, including probably like right-wing extremist militia groups and shit, and that'll be that. And hopefully the communists win out in that situation.
Do you think it's gotta happen? The United States working class. I mean, obviously, think of how monumental that would be if the working class actually took control of the government in the United States. But, or do you see it more likely that it happens elsewhere, and there's like sort of a domino effect?
I think,
know.
I mean, both, because BRICS it's slowly but surely creating an alternative financial system to the IMF, World Bank, US dominated financial system. And, the IMF and World Bank were created with the Bretton Woods system and with the CIA, near the end of World War II. So that was when the U.S. established this, global dominance, and you no longer have these warring imperialist powers like in Lenin's day. You have this one unipolar hegemon that's kind of made the European power subservient to it, and that's what we've had for the last 70 years. But now that's starting to change, and U.S. dollar dominance is starting to go away, very, very slowly. The petrodollar is still a very real thing. But
what do you say to people that say that BRICS is nascent imperialism?
That's so fucking stupid. That's so stupid. The BRICS loans, I mean, not only is China canceling all this debt for African countries, but the BRICS loans, for one, they're only aimed at equity. They're only allowed to be equity, so they're only allowed to develop infrastructure, meaning productive infrastructure that will then produce more wealth for the country where it's being built, rather than just trapping them in debt and extracting
and forcing them to buy into the war economy. Like they're a lot of what the United States does is force the debtor country to have like a military contract with them, where they have to buy all these military weapons and stuff, and it serves the United States military industrial complex. Ultimately, it's a really good book on that. It makes me want to read. I haven't read the whole thing, but called, Michael Hudson, Super Imperialism.
Oh yeah, that's a great book.
But he talks a lot about how the creation of the IMF, the World Bank, the Bretton Woods system, and the dollar hegemony, obviously. But so do you like Richard Wolff?
Yeah, I think he's good. I mean, I'm not big on like the co-ops thing.
Okay,
But
he pushes co-ops a little too much, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, it's just co-ops could be cool.
Seems like a symptom rather than
block of socialism, but
yeah,
he emphasizes them a little too much. Whereas it's like some of these industries we just need to nationalize. I'm sorry, they just need to be taken into the hands of the state. They don't really need to be co-ops. But and he also did that video a while back where he was explaining how you would get a PS5 under socialism, and it was really like utopian and goofy, where he was like, well, a council of workers would vote on whether or not you deserve a PS5. Like, what, bro? Like, don't tell people that's what socialism is.
Yeah, they're not going to like that. Oh, I need to get a vote? I need to put it to a vote?
Right. You don't get your PS5, sir. But, he's a great intro. I'm sure a lot of people have found our work through being introduced through Richard Wolff. He was one of my introductions to Marxism when I was still in the Kyle Kalinske social democratic world, so I think he serves a good purpose. Yeah, and
what about you? He's very pro-China, and he talks a lot about how China is overcoming, like BRICS, for example. He says that its GDP is already larger than the G7 in the United States, or and China is growing economically faster than any other country.
Absolutely.
But interesting.
It's interesting that Prax Ben was in our comments.
Was he?
He was trying to accuse you of something when...
Trash bin?
Trash Ben. Even though I have evidence on my phone right now of Trash Ben hitting up a 17-year-old when he was a 19-year-old adult. So he should shut the hell up and go away. Just saying. Sorry, I hope that doesn't get your TikTok stream taken down.
I'm not too worried about Trash bin.
No. Trash.
I just got visited by my son.
What's his name?
This is in my anarchist phase, so forgive me, but he's Noam Chomsky.
That's a pretty cool name still. You can name your next one Parenti.
Yeah, right. The next one's Parenti, or I was thinking Chairman Meow is the name of my next cat.
That's pretty good.
That'd be pretty funny. But that's that's played out probably too.
True. So. Right. Might have to get a little more creative. Yeah, you got anything else you wanted to ask, or any other topics you wanted to bring up?
I could talk to you for hours, I feel like. But I feel like this was a good... How long have we been? I feel like we've done about an hour, huh?
Hour 10, yeah.
Hour 10, that's pretty good. What were you planning? Were you doing a full stream, or Or is-
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna talk to you. We can stay on and continue to talk if you want. I just know I told you an hour. I don't know if you got.
I'm cool with continuing if you are.
Yeah.
We could like
I'm just gonna
answer
grab a glass of
questions.
water quick if you don't mind.
What's that?
I'm gonna go grab a glass of water quick.
Yeah,
if you don't
sure.
mind.
I'll talk to
will
your
be
chat.
ready. Please do.
Yeah. What's up? What's going on? What y'all up to? Chomsky is diet parenti made palpable to the mainstream. I mean, probably. You named your cat after Thomas Hobbes. Interesting. Okay, let's see. So you guys say we should keep going. All right. What else should we talk about? Fuck communism, though. Okay. You sound really aggressive. Maybe have a glass of water, chill out. You know, I don't know why people are so bent out of shape for a political economy they're not currently living in and do not understand. But go off, I guess. What's up, Daniel? Thank you, Joseph. What are my comedy heroes? George Carlin, I think, is my favorite comedian. Hey, there he is.
I've returned. Thank
You
you.
have
for
returned?
keeping
Okay,
them
cool.
busy.
Cheers.
Cheers. Let me
So,
answer
yeah,
these super chats.
Let's see. Oh, I could show you, like, I mean, unless you guys want to, whatever you guys want to talk about, I'm down, you know? I'm currently reading about the microchip industry. I know this guy is probably a neocon, but I want to figure out more about, like, because there's a whole trade war happening, obviously, with China. And, you know, microchips are apparently a big deal, okay? Is what I've learned. And, you know, the whole world runs on microchips. And we have, like, a complete stranglehold on that economy. So that's just what I've been learning. We could talk about that if you want. We could talk more about the ACP if you'd like. And some people are asking about market socialism.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I starred one of those comments. We could talk about that. I just want to add, if you are ever down to join ACP or even be, you know, associated with us at all in an unofficial capacity, like,
Yeah.
let me know anything you want to do. Like, you were talking about how you're not a huge organizer, but I mean, in the world we live in today, social media is organizing.
That's what I say too. I mean, you know, my organization is like, well, I get people together and we talk about, like, we're sort of like little lightning rods for discussion, like sharing ideas and stuff. So I feel like just having a stream where you have people, we're organized right now, technically, in a stream around, you know, communist ideas and sharing, you know, all this great knowledge. But, you know, yeah, I guess I would love to learn more about how to, you know, institute more choke points in the economy. Like that, I keep going back to this book, but it was just talking about like how we need to have, you know, exact power over the economy. And, you know, obviously you do that through labor unions. I mean, it's not like I feel like these questions have already been answered, you know, throughout history. It's just like we gotta, like I said before, like we've been sidelined from it. We don't even know what we don't know. And,
Right.
you know, so.
Yeah, there's like this theory on the Western left now. I hear it all the time, and at some level, there's a kernel of truth in it, but also it's also wrong. People say that we need to organize the most oppressed sections of the working class. And, you know, oppression, how do you really quantify oppression? And I get what they're saying, because, you know, there was this sort of dogmatic, mechanistic Marxist idea back in the day that socialism would arise first in the developed capitalist countries in Europe. And that ended up not being the case because it was the countries who were under the boot of imperialism where the people actually, you know, had the motive to rise up and overthrow their government. And that's, you know, kind of been true ever since. It's been the colonized world who's been leading the struggle for socialism. But within the United States, like, yeah, we want to target people who are, you know, downtrodden, beaten down by the system, of course. And, you know, minority groups are obviously targeted by our racist police and prison system. And those are things that communists have led the struggle against and that are part of the communist class struggle. But, like, identifying the most oppressed sections of the working class isn't necessarily the most strategic way to organize
Absolutely.
workplaces. We want the most vital sections,
Right.
the microchips, the real industry. Like, you know, I'm all like Starbucks unions, go for it. Some of the first people to unionize Starbucks were Midwestern Marx viewers. Makes me so proud.
That's
That's
awesome.
amazing. Yeah, keep up the good work organizing Starbucks. That being said, if there's a Starbucks strike, you know, people just aren't going to get their coffee. If there's a rail strike, and this is why Biden had to bust up the rail strike before it happened, the whole freaking economy shuts down.
Right.
And that's something we need to understand.
That's exactly right. On pernt. I mean, if you guys better wake up and listen to Eddie right now, who is half lion and half tiger.
Bred for their skills and
But it's like music to my ears, because like usually I'm the one saying this, screaming this into my phone, but now it's nice to hear somebody else say it back to me. But yeah, I completely agree that, you know, organizing the most oppressed is not necessarily the most vital, even though sometimes it could work out to be that they're the easiest ones to organize, and that can be useful, but they might not be able to, like you say, shut down the entire economy. And I'm ranting. John Womack makes that same point, and talking about how, you know, it's there. Where could it be that you could institute a strike of a relatively small amount of workers, but would it have cascading catastrophic consequences for the system, you know, for the supply chain? He actually studied the Mexican Revolution, and he was like very much like historically minded about it. Just wanted to understand what the facts were at first, but then he read this other book about like labor power, I guess, and you know, labor tactics and stuff. And then he started to like Monday morning quarterback, like the Mexican Revolution was ultimately a failure, but why did it fail and how could it have been successful? And he kind of made an entire argument that if they were able to strike, there was at the time, he like looked at the economy, you know, and he found that like the major export for Mexico was silver. And silver exports was a huge source of revenue for the governments, for the Mexican government. And at the time, there was only one main railroad that, you know, was able to get the silver out of Mexico City, let's say, and to, you know, the United States and elsewhere throughout the world. And if you shut down that railroad, you could effectively force a political crisis. And it's like, okay, well, of that railroad industry, of that one railroad, okay, that's a choke point. It's like a point where there's a lot of outputs, but maybe only one input. You know, it's sort of like how we think of Amazon sortation centers today or Amazon distribution centers. There's a lot of inputs to a distribution center, but only one output. So if you stop that one distribution center, you can have a big effect. And it wouldn't take that many workers to do that. But he found that if there was like 450 dispatchers, that if you organize a strike, you could shut down that railroad operation, because if you didn't have dispatchers, the trains would run into each other and there would just be catastrophic. So I don't know. That was pretty enlightening to me to learn. But
yeah, that's super. I mean, the guy who actually got me into Marxism now works in rail for that reason, and he's been like, I was so excited when I heard you talking about this topic on your live once, because this is the kind of stuff he's been saying forever. We've started calling it the pressure point theory. Like, there are pressure points within the economy that you can hit, and Yeah, I had something else to say about it. It slipped my mind now, but
Well, I think, the ACP, I mean, let's fucking blow that shit up. Let's get that big, you know?
yes, let's do it. I mean, and to your point, in our area, like one thing I want to do, we're publishing our first theoretical journal at the ACP soon, but eventually I want to do a full analysis of American industry because, oh, that's what I was going to say. Industry is still at the base of our economy, but like in my area, I know what all the industrial hubs are, and we have a member of ACP who just got union steward, at the biggest manufacturing plant in the community. So if we can combine that kind of workplace organizing with also community organizing and refining people's political consciousness, because union organizing is just union organizing, it's bread and butter issues, that workplace organizing for better wages, better pay. But if we can tie that, to political organizing as well, like that's when we're really gonna take off, and it's just gonna get, we just got to get people active in a real organization that's focused on this, and that's why we founded the ACP, so we can funnel people and get them to work in their communities and workplaces. And yeah, like industry is still like our economy is hyper financialized, but this is how it works. The banks give the manufacturers money so they can start their factories and pay their workers. Then the workers create the commodities, who the capitalists sell, and then they get surplus value because the worker, they're ripping off the workers, they're exploiting value. Then they take that surplus value and they pay it back to the bank for the money that they were loaned. So even the banks, the basis of them is still industry. It's still the working class. It's still the industrial working class. And you can, like, the whole banking system shuts down. The whole, tons of industries are connected. You shut down one industry, you shut down a bunch. It's just a matter of getting these people organized to the point where they have the ability to do that, and getting the working class elevated enough in their political consciousness to where they see themselves as a class and understand that it's in their material interest to do so.
Because right now, anything is better than what we have. We live in a corporate duopoly controlled by, political and economic elites. And they, the height of disparity has never been greater. I feel like, how much worse does it need to get, for people to really wake up? I mean, people are still, I remember chastising liberals for coming at me on TikTok, and I would stitch them about, because I would be anti-Biden for this or that reason. Maybe it was the railroad strike at that point. But they were still coming to their defense. And still you have vote blue no matter who liberals defending a fucking genocide and even lying on their behalf, saying, oh, we're not sending, offensive weapons. We're only sending defensive weapons, as if that's a thing. It's wild how much they are so And you can't even call out the Democratic Party because you must be pro-Trump at that point. You're just enabling Trump. You must be MAGA. I mean, I've been called all kinds of names. I mean, at this point, it's just ridiculous. I feel like you can't even state what's happening without people saying it must be a political angle you're playing here. But I mean, yeah, it is, but it's because we recognize correctly that, the entire political system is completely bought and sold for. And
well, that's the thing about liberals, is they pretend like they don't have an ideology. They're pro-capitalism, they're pro-two-party system, and then they say, well, I'm just looking at it objectively. No, you're not. You think I'm biased, but I just understand my ideology, and I understand exactly where it differs from the liberal ideology. We've just had the courage to admit that everybody has a worldview, everybody has an ideology, and then we interrogate, what our preconceived notions are. And a lot of these people never do that, and it's all they have. It's like Marx says in the German ideology, like they have, like if you understand history, and materialism, then everything makes sense. It makes perfect sense that we need to move out of capitalism to socialism, and the ruling class relies upon lying to the entire population, keeping the population tricked into thinking that a system that's not working for them actually is. So that's the one advantage. They own the media, they own everything, but we have the truth on our side. And the only thing they can do when there are truth tellers like yourself is, oh, you're MAGA, Trump supporter, fascist, tanky, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, or like you're not, solution oriented, and you're only talking about the problems. But I feel like that's misguided, because you know, we need to talk about the problems. And how do you identify solutions if you don't know what the problems are? And, you know, going back to like dialectic thinking, you know, your thoughts become actions. We need more people walking around understanding the class war. And I just don't see that most people don't get it yet, you know? There's not been that sea change moment. Isn't it true that, you know, innumerable, often unnoticeably quantitative changes happen, which force a qualitative change, you know, that's obviously transcendental, but without that, you know, seemingly unnoticeable amount of quantitative changes, you'll never get that qualitative change. And I feel like that's sort of where we're at this point. We're still trying to get everybody on board with what's going on, and then we can organize around that. But I don't know. Ideas become action. I don't know. What do you think? Does that ring true?
Yeah, our favorite quote from Marx, actually, I think I might have it on the front page of our website. I can pull it up. And this quote was kind of the inspiration for starting Midwestern Marx, is like you said, ideas are ideas, but they turn into actions, and they can become material reality, you know, through our actions. That's how we translate ideas to practice. And Marx's quote is, theory becomes a material force as soon as it is gripped by the masses. So it's an idea, theory is an idea, but once it's gripped by the masses, once they start to see themselves as a class rather than as a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, which is the consciousness of most American workers right now, once they understand that, then they can fight. But until you, like you said, if you haven't identified the problems, how do you fight against it? And that's why we have so many people becoming like Nick Fuentes fans, or people who think that Trump is gonna like drain the swamp. And it's like, guys, he's part of the swamp. The only person who's gonna save you is you, the working class. If you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself.
That's who said that? Kwame Ture said that, or Fred
Hampton? I think.
Yep, so true. I love that. It's so simple. Quantity is a quality of its own. Very nice.
That's a mind bender.
Very good. So excited to see these guys. Oh, nice. Thank you, Riley. Yeah, I understand you get a lot of criticism, you know, as I do, but, you know, I think that we need to focus on the actual criminals who wield institutional leverage over society. Those people are not us. It's not Eddie and it's not me. You know, there's a separate class of people, and if you guys want to get hung up on, you know, this purity fetish about, oh, you know, all what the material opposition is doing and how it could be, I mean, sure, but like if you're just gonna be pejorative and negative about it, then, you know, it's sort of fed behavior. I feel like, you know, it's like, we're not the fucking problem, okay? I don't own the railroads, okay? I don't know what to tell you. I can't buy legislation, okay? I wish that I could. But we're not the problem. And we're trying to organize and figure out a best way to attack the problem. So, you know, I just feel like that needs to be said, because people get lost in the weeds, you know? It's like, go make so many people want to make TikToks about, you know, me or you, or it's like, where's your TikTok about Steven Schwartzman? Where's your TikTok about Larry Fink? You know, where's your TikTok about the actual people that we have, you know, we're in a class war with, you know? But
exactly. And I mean, I can tell just from hearing you talk that you're not terminally online, that you're not spending all day on Twitter and these leftist bubbles, because you're not familiar with the nonsense that they say and what they have to do. Because like you said, we're just here trying to figure out what's the best way forward. What's the best way to, you know, build the best society we can and fix all these horrible problems that we have now. But they have to accuse you of not being genuine. They have to accuse you of being a secret fascist, or, you know, just secretly trying to infiltrate the left on behalf of the CIA.
The amount of things that get back to me, I'm like, wow, I had no idea I had that much power, or I didn't know that about me. Wow, I'm funded by Qatar. That's great. Al
Well, you
Jazeera
went
funds me.
there, so clearly you're funded by the government if you visit another country.
It's like people need to touch grass, okay? There's a whole fucking real world out there that, you know, you're getting lost in all this. I mean, read theory, that's great, but like, you know, there's also like an actual world that you must contend with. Is all I'm
Right.
trying to
When we
say.
were deciding how we were going to process people into the ACP, we were like, you know, talking about what kind of tests we should do to judge where their theoretical knowledge is at. And we're like, eventually we're like, well, let's figure out where people are theoretically, but let's not bar them from the party, you know, if they have basically the right idea, if they're anti-imperialist and pro-worker, so long as they're willing to do the work, so long as they're willing to get involved in their communities. Because, you know, Carlos is my colleague and buddy and co-founder of Midwestern Marx, is the head of the education department at the ACP. So you can take people who know no theory and teach it to them, right? But you can't take somebody who knows all the theory but refuses to go outside and clean up trash in their neighborhood or organize their workplace. But so what's most important is being willing to do the work, and then you can learn from that. And that's how we process people into the ACP. If you're willing to work, come on in. We'll teach you the theory stuff later.
Yeah, and if you don't, you're fucking going to the gulag, bitch.
Exactly. You're going to the countryside, where the dunce cap.
Yeah, it's shit. I just had a thought and I lost it. But what we got?
I have a question. I ran a TikTok class recently. Obviously, we've been doing classes with Midwestern Marx, and I was like, I want to teach a class. I'll teach one on how to do TikToks. So we did that, and it's worked pretty well. Not everybody in the class took to it, but there have been like 6 or 7 people who took that class who are now growing audiences on TikTok, and it's nice because we have this network of people who can kind of boost each other and whatnot, like you and I do. But what are some of the tips and tricks specifically for making social media content or videos or TikTok content specifically, whatever, that you've learned since you started doing it? Like, what would you say if people wanted to start an account doing this kind of educational content or agitational content? What would be your core pieces of advice?
It's a good question. Being visible, obviously, putting your face out there is, I think, pretty big. Write out what you want to say. You know, it's like, I sort of think of it like, if what do you want people to really know? If it's like your last day on Earth and you just had to tell these people, like, look, this is what's really important, what would you say? You know, and I try to think of it like that. Like, assume that they don't know anything, or they're starting at a very baseline understanding, like, and you want to go over, like, because I remember when I first heard this refreshing knowledge that made me just sort of, I just had a moment of clarity. I want to share that with people. I want to, what other people have done for me and have taught me, I want to do that now. You know, I want to put that on other people and have them react to it. But I think other than that, it's like, obviously sticking to your principles and, trimming down to the fucking millisecond, leave no fat on the bone, like whatever, TikTok is an amazing editing software. I mean, it's the best, and I give it credit for like it being so intuitive and understanding, it's like far better any video app, especially the editing with it. You have that's a lot of power. That's a lot of tools. I'm just using, like, you have a voice and you have an iPhone, you have social media. If it was 100 years ago, perhaps we would be distributing leaflets, but this is the political, agitation propaganda of our age is using the tools, that we have, that the capitalist gods gave to us so graciously. But,
It creates its own grave diggers.
That's right. The capitalism sells us the news.
Mm-hmm.
So we thank you for that. And that's another point, is that we're not going back to feudalism, even though it might look like techno-feudalism, as like Yanis Varoufakis might say. But we're not feudal serfs, you know. We actually we're literate. We understand how the capitalist mode of production works. We understand how to work the means of production. We're knowledgeable, and so we have the knowledge to, if it can be built, it can be destroyed. If it can be built, it can fail. And,
Yeah, that's such an interesting point, because socialism would have been impossible under feudalism. Like, there are certain things about liberal society that are like, you know, the Civil War in the U.S. It made the Confederate South a liberal capitalist society. That's better than chattel slavery run by an oligarchy of plantation owners and bankers. Like you said, people then get taught to read. There's public education, and it creates the conditions for the possibility of socialism. That's capitalism's historical role. Develop the productive forces, create the possibility for socialism.
And that's a beautiful point. You just one-upped me there. You got to it before I did. But the fact that there was a capitalist revolution, right? I mean, the fact that the bourgeois were a revolutionary class at one point, right? In terms of you know, going against the monarchy and like the French Revolution, you could say, like at one point it was, but it quickly became a reactionary, you know, force, a reactionary class, the bourgeoisie, and now the proletariat come in as now they're tasked with being the revolutionary class, and that's like you say, it's a historical process. And I think once you look at it like that, it's like, you know, that's what Marx did for us. He brought it down to a science, you know.
And one of the most illuminating things, I feel like, for Americans is reading a book like Black Reconstruction by Du Bois, which is a Marxist analysis of the Civil War, because Marx is obviously in Europe. So he's talking about the transition from feudalism to capitalism, and he gives analysis of America, but he never gives, you know, a full book analyzing the Civil War. And, you know, it's not just that European history is a history of class struggle. All history is a history of class struggle. And we never learned the Civil War this way, right? We all know about the Civil War. We all know it was the Union versus the Confederacy. But what happened was there was competition between the slave owners in the Confederate South and the industrialists in the capitalist North. And the productive forces were not advancing very quickly under slavery the same way they were under capitalism. So that was one of the advantages that the industrialists had, that this bourgeoisie had, which again is a more progressive class historically compared to the slave owners. So because of the advancement of the means of production, the capitalist class becomes more and more powerful. The rivalry between the slave owning class grows, and the war breaks out. But the turning point in the war is when Lincoln announces the end of slavery, because there's another class contradiction at play in the South, not just the contradiction between the capitalists in the North and the slave owners, but the contradiction between the slave owners and the slaves. So the Union and Lincoln announced that they're going to end slavery, and all of a sudden all these slaves flee, go join the Union Army, and it has the double effect of depriving the South of labor, like a general strike, and injecting the North with troops who happen to be the hardest fighting troops, who you know, journals from the Civil War all praise for their bravery and their fighting ability, because the slaves were fighting for their freedom. So they were the most effective troops. So it was, the Civil War itself was absolutely in every single way a product of class struggle. And for Americans to understand our own history like that, when we've been inundated with this bourgeois nonsense, great man of history fallacy that Lincoln just decided to end slavery one day, like, it really illuminates it. It's like, oh, it is possible to understand why things happen.
Right. That was beautiful. I love that. I learned something just then. I love when you break down the contradictions, you know.
Yeah, it makes it all make so much sense.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all looking for, you know, is an explanation, really.
Yeah.
What the heck is going on?
I feel like I should have prepared more questions and stuff, but
no worries. I ran through all of the ones I had prepared.
So are you prepared for your match? When's your next wrestling match? You said it was in a couple
I
days.
feel really good right now.
Okay, good.
Next weekend, yeah, so it's coming up quick here.
All right.
Yeah, I've been I'm cutting weight, which isn't fun. But like when I was in college, I had to make weight like, you know, a couple times a week, or in high school. versus now that I'm older, you only got to make weight like once every 3 months. So I almost enjoy it a little bit, like depriving myself. And, you know, in America, there's so much abundance. Like, I mean, obviously we're all living paycheck to paycheck and drowning in debt, but we do have an abundance of, you know, food and commodities compared to third world countries. And
Yeah.
I almost like to put myself in that state a little bit because it gives me some sympathy with countries who the U.S. is starving, especially when I dehydrate myself. That's the worst. But also it kind of puts you in a mode like, you know, getting ready to fight. You feel hungry.
Yeah, staying hungry. I agree.
Right.
I like to work up an appetite, you know.
Yeah.
But hey, it doesn't seem like just such bourgeois decadence to say, oh, I like to work up my appetite, like as if you know, you got people suffering from a famine halfway across the world because of our policies. But what do you say to? I thought of a question. What do you say to people that say, well, we just got to get money out of politics? If we just get money out of politics, everything would be fine. What do you say to that?
I would say.
Do you hear that? I hear that.
I do hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, it makes sense. I get where people are coming from, but like the people who own the political system right now are those with the money. It's the ruling class. So how are you going to get the political system to change that, to fix the system without having some kind of revolutionary uprising where power is seized from the people who have the money? It's impossible, you know.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court literally legalized bribery in 2011. They're not going to go back on that.
Was that with the Citizens United?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, the super
That was
PACs.
just,
The
like,
fact
full
that our
mass
government
vote.
is captured by special interest lobby groups, you know, that's. But I think that like everything takes money. Like separating, it's like how do you separate politics from an economy? It's called the political economy of capitalism for a reason, you know. Yeah, here we go. There's some fucking theory shit for you guys.
Yes. So, I mean, this is the main failure of liberalism. Like,
This
that
is
was
beautiful.
The French Revolution. The French Revolution was like, we're going to have democracy. Rather than having the divine right of kings, these lords who are, you know, supposedly ordained by God, we're going to use reason, our own rationality. This is the Enlightenment, to vote for our political leaders. And what Marx says is that doesn't make any sense because whoever controls the means of production is going to control the politics. They control the media. They control the money. They control the sources of making money. They control the resources. How are you going to take the politics?
Yeah, which is what I like to go back to, as Herr Stalin once said, that you know the productive, and he was obviously quoting Marx and Lenin, but the productive forces shape political and social life, and your relation to the production, you know, shapes your everything that you think of, you know, about society, what is possible even, which I find illuminating. And that, I feel like that's sort of what you're speaking to here as well. How that, you know, who owns the means of production? That's what it all boils down to. And I think it's really beautiful to understand that every society that has ever existed has had a working class. It could be no other way. You know, in order to have a society, you needed a group of able-bodied workers who were able to create commodities for human consumption. It was only, and another feature of every working class is that they always produce more than they can readily consume themselves. So there's a surplus necessarily. And so it's what do we do with that surplus? And I find that, you know, in a capitalist society, the surplus goes to the capitalists. It just goes to private owners who don't work. And in a socialist society, the working class would decide where does that surplus go? What does that put to, you know? So that was, I feel, I like that little chart you pulled up. That's,
Thank you.
yeah, it's pretty illuminating. Is
Base
that
and superstructure,
yeah, the
they
base
call
and the
that.
superstructure, and the base always determines the superstructure. But there are at times, as I understand it, times where the superstructure can then influence the base as well, depending on
They condition one another. Yeah, like the media. You know, the media is capitalist media because it's owned by capitalists. Because capitalists own the means of production, they own the base. But then the media lies to the working class and tells the working class imperialism is good and capitalism is good. So it maintains the base. It maintains the capitalist mode of production, tricks people into not rising up. And this is, the superstructure will always be controlled by the owners of the means of production. Like, you can't give the means of production to Bill Gates and Bezos and allow them to own all the food, water, factories, machinery, and then say, well, we're going to have a political system that works for everyone.
Right.
No, the people who own everything are always going to use that wealth to control the political system.
Absolutely. So let's pair that with, you know, the election cycle that we're going through right now. Like what possible, you know, agency do we have as American working class people when the government is captured by special interest lobby groups who lobby on behalf of transnational stateless corporations, you know? And it's like, how do you tackle that behemoth? And, you know, I think obviously the working class has power in numbers, but we're just not all on the same page as to how society is organized. And, you know, I guess, you know, that's not too surprising considering just all the things that you just said. They control all the art, the culture. It's sort of giving me Antonio Gramsci vibes, you know, like the capitalist hegemony, the cultural hegemony of capitalism, and how that shapes what we think is acceptable, the terrain of acceptable ideas, you know.
Because one of the things that really, like, Gramsci's so important, because Marx wasn't really alive for the advent of consumerism, really. Like, he talks about commodity fetishism and stuff, but advertising only really blew up in the early 1900s after Marx was gone. And Gramsci does all of this analysis of the media and you know, the culture that's controlled by the capitalists and how they use that control of culture and the media to maintain the capitalist base, the mode of production. And it's such a vital analysis, especially for our world today after, you know, all these advancements in digital technology where we all have TVs, you know, in our hands.
And it's just so sickening when I learned that from Gramsci. It's just like, I mean, a great analysis, and it's just like, it made me so mad. Like, they not only colonized our land, I mean, I'm white, I know, but, you know, the country that is the United States colonized land, resources, our labor, but it also colonized our fucking minds, you know? It colonized our ideas about society, and that was, like, really gross. And you see it everywhere. Everything is just so... Every movie that I watch, every song that I listen to, I have to see what's the class nature, what's the class-based analysis of this, like what is it promoting, you know? Because if it's just pro-capitalism, like you miss me with that bullshit, you know?
Mm-hmm. And Hollywood's so bad. Like, they'll call you a conspiracy theorist. Like, dude, the DOD, if you use U.S. military gear in your movie, the DOD gets to write your script, or they get to oversee your script, and they get to tell you, you know, yes or no.
I didn't know that, but that's not surprising at all.
Right, and every studio has a political censorship board.
The Hollywood industrial complex.
Right, and Parenti has a book about this called Make Believe Media. It's so good. I mean, it's a little outdated. It's from the 90s, so he's using old movies and stuff, but he shows how captured Hollywood was even in the 90s, and it's crazy. And he goes through the amount of pro-working class movies that have come out, like Salt of the Earth, which is a movie about a union strike. I can't remember which event exactly, but like it had to be self-funded or independently funded. They had to raise money, and some of this stuff is easier now through social media, but it's like Hollywood really doesn't let any class-conscious art through, and it's designed to be like, you know, a filter, basically, to sift out any class consciousness. And even if you have a movie like Parasite that's super based and anti-capitalist, there's always a shot at the DPRK, right? You're allowed to say capitalism sucks, but then you got to turn around and say socialism sucks too. You can't say capitalism sucks, therefore we need socialism. That's what's totally off limits.
And I saw that movie before I became a Marxist, but I knew that it was anti-capitalist. I don't remember the anti-socialist bent, but
it was just one little. I mean, they were mocking a DPRK news reporter.
Oh, right,
and
yeah.
Like, I learned after that's a thing that all South Korean movies have to do. They have to take a shot at the North if they're going to criticize capitalism.
Right. And I love when we shame the victims of imperialism for the state of their country. You know, like, can you imagine if North Koreans bombed the United States and killed 20% of our population? Like, you know, and then instituted a sanctions, harsh sanctions on our economy, and then basically turned us into a pariah state. I don't know if we would like that.
Probably not. I mean, what is that, one person in every family of 5? So almost everybody in Korea today has an ancestor that was murdered by the United States, and they're
Right.
still being choked by the United States to this day, and then we think they're the crazy ones for not
Yeah.
liking us?
Yeah. Yeah, no, because they do the goose stepping and they have the parades and the weird haircuts, and so they're cooked. They're weird.
Yep. Hermit Kingdom.
Hermit Kingdom. I haven't heard that.
Whoops.
So I know we're probably going over. I don't know. We've almost done 2 hours. I mean, we can totally,
Pretty good.
you know. I don't want to overstay my welcome, but
No, you're good. We're happy to have you on. People were excited. Did you have any more topics? Did you want to? Who are you voting for? I guess we can talk about that.
who am I voting for? I'm not voting, and I don't. You know, people that want to advocate for who should I vote for? Are you voting? Who's? I mean, I actually did a video on this. Voting, suppose, you know, you're presuming that we actually vote in America. I think in a federal election for president, I don't know that we're voting. I don't think we actually have choice. I think we ratify, and we ratify decisions already made by the business class, and that's my answer for that. But you know, people always say, like, people leave me comments, Jill Stein for president. I mean, would it be great to have Jill Stein or Cornel West, who's actually, you know, they even mention the word neoliberalism in their rhetoric. You know, they're actually against Israel, you know. Yeah, that would be great, but it's never going to happen, you know, in the current climate. So it's just like, I feel like when people focus too much on who you're voting for, you're missing the larger picture. You know, it's not about, you know, voting is like a 10th order of importance type of an action. It's not even, it's
maybe if that,
right? Yeah, I don't think it has too much of a bearing on our political democracy. I don't think we have a democracy, obviously. I mean, when 70% of the public is completely disenfranchised from Senate votes, for, you know, those studies that have been done that demonstrate that you know, wealth and power dictate government policy. So I don't know. I mean, I wish I had a better answer. I wish I could say, yeah, just do this one thing and then everything is fine, and that's what I'm doing, so you do the same. I don't have a good answer. I think I think, you know, we're going to have to keep organizing in the background, waiting for the next capitalist crisis. And what, you know, it's just like a war. It's like a battle. When you see your enemy, there's a weak point in your enemy's action, or, you know, you take, you know, opportunity. You know about that in wrestling, I'm sure, as a metaphor in that there, you know.
Art of war.
Yeah, when your enemy is weak, that's when you attack. That's when you go on the offensive. And then when your enemy is strong, you defend. So, yeah, there you go. 90% organizing, 10% voting. I mean, you know, when it comes down to November 4th, like, and that's the thing that you have to do, then you can do that. I'm not discouraging anyone from voting. I just don't think I want people to just more so understand how their society is organized. I want them to be educated and understand what the problems are, and, you know, before we can talk about voting, you know?
Right. I mean, I'll go vote third party or not vote. I haven't decided yet. I don't care at all like you, but I also don't care if people say they are going to vote.
Yeah.
'Cause like you said, I just don't think it's something we should spend that much time on. The only thing I'm opposed to is communists spending their time working on campaigns the same way I did in 2020, because that time could be better served building a vanguard party, which is what we need in the long term. And, you know, we're not there yet. We have the ACP. It needs to be built and grown, and I'd rather have people getting organized in their communities, you know, bringing good people into a vanguard communist party rather than spending all this time on the elections, which is the problem with CPUSA, is they're calling themselves the vanguard party while they just tail around the Democrats, who are, of course, part of this two-party imperialist, neoliberal pseudo-democracy or fake democracy. And, like, yeah, I might go vote for Jill Stein. She's pretty based. She continues to run, even though the Democrats call her a Russian asset every year, which I respect her not backing down to that. But, you know, is the Green Party a vanguard party? Is the Green Party the party that's going to organize? Like, our keys right now are organized workplaces, organized communities. and only then can we start talking about, a real revolutionary movement. Is that what the Green Party's doing, or are they just running, another campaign every 4 years and kind of doing what they do? I would argue it's more that, which
You're
is
right.
fine, respectable. But what we need is the Vanguard Party. What we need is the ACP, people organizing their communities, people organizing their workplaces, elevating workers' class consciousness so they can understand their position within the economy, like Rathbone said, and then giving them the vehicle to actually do something about it. The ACP's in its early stages. Left-wing communism and infantile disorder was written, I don't know, a handful of years before the revolution. Like, things weren't, super organized and revolutionary in Russia in the lead up. But, there are decades where weeks happen and weeks where decades happen.
Right.
And we just need to keep our focus on the workplace and community organizing and not get distracted by the bread and circus bullshit, no matter how enticing and, dramatic it might be.
And it's not a very sexy answer, but it's like, it's more honest. And, like I said before, it's like we communists must be organizing in the background, waiting for that next time to strike, when the capitalist mode of production inevitably breaks down, as we know that it will do. It's becoming increasingly, more frequent over the years. And, just expect more fucking train wrecks, I guess. And
who knows what the next crisis is gonna be, man.
Yeah,
Not looking forward to it.
But I don't think that the onus is not on us to give you a foolproof plan, and like the onus should be, we should focus on the criminals of our society. The onus should be on them to demonstrate their legitimacy to us, and if they can't, then they should be dismantled. It's not on us we don't have the power. So a lot of people act as if we should have everything spelled out for them and know the blah, 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 blah. And the point I want to make is that that's the people in power's responsibility, It's not our responsibility. We're not the ones in power. We should, that onus should be on them, and if they can't demonstrate it, we should dismantle them. But and reconstitute it from the bottom up. But I want to always talk to other working class people and speak to them about the material conditions, and screw all the cultural bullshit and this idea of like voting our way into a social movement or social revolution. That's a pipe dream, and I want to speak to working class members of society directly and educate them, and because the $1 trillion PR industry knows perfectly well that's what why do they spend so much money trying to influence what we think? I mean, it's vastly important. Okay, they wouldn't spend all this money if it wasn't important.
Yes.
So it's like we're just us talking here and educating people and getting them to think. And I don't know what other people's capacities are. I don't know what part of the industry you operate, or but you have some capacity, you have some talent, some skill that you can put forth and use it in a class conscious way. And this is what I'm doing. This is what Eddie's doing. We're using our skills. We're using the resources that we have available to spread this to other people, and hopefully mobilize more people to organize within their communities, like you're saying. And I think that's just like, it's not a sexy answer. It's going to take time, obviously, but it will come. I do believe that communism will win.
Yes. People can't. The other thing they try to induce us with is nihilism.
Yeah.
They try to make you think another world's not possible.
Oh yeah.
I had this epiphany when I was at the Lincoln Memorial reading about the Union soldiers. I'm like, they really fought for that. People really left their homes and fought a war to end slavery and move the mode of production forward. And yet we think capitalism's eternal?
Yeah.
No way.
Right.
No way it's eternal. So don't be nihilistic. And like what you said is so important. Everybody in our audience is going to freaking love this interview because you're speaking our language here. But like you said, they wouldn't spend so much money or spend so much time suppressing us and deleting our accounts and pushing propaganda if it wasn't possible for us to win.
Right. It becomes, in a liberal democracy as we find ourselves in, it becomes hugely important for the political apparatus and the people that control the institutions to make us behave a certain way and to get us to instill their values onto us, and because we're not being necessarily beaten down, like we're not being huddled into camps as of yet, at least I mean, I'm sure you could break that down and show how there are certain social groups that are being brought into camps, but I'm just saying, by and large, it's very important to control what the American public thinks and is possible, and we have to push that further. We have to open that Overton window up more, I
Right.
think.
It's like that Zizek theory that Hazeldine's been repeating, that liberalism is almost more pervasive when it comes to brainwashing you because you think you're free.
Yeah. Liberalism is like, I think that's a huge point that you just touched on. Like, liberalism is more dangerous than outright fascism, because at least like fascism, it's very open, it's very blatant, but the liberalism is more insidious. It's more Machiavellian, and I think that's more dangerous. A wolf in sheep's clothing is still a wolf.
Right. It's certainly a different beast to take on too, and organizing people against the monarchs was a different story than organizing people against the capitalists, because the capitalists try to trick you into thinking we're one class, that there is no working class, and it's not the reality. But and things like social media, they own the social media platforms, they control the algorithm, that's their advantage. But again, our advantage is, one, the truth is on our side, and two, the development of the means of communication and the means of production open cracks where we can get in, with the truth, like TikTok, like what you and I are doing. Yeah, we're both shadow banned, we're both suppressed, we both had accounts banned, but when there have been opportunities for us to reach people, we've taken advantage of it. And I think what you said earlier is so important. Not everybody's going to be a public facing figure. Not everybody has a talent for speaking and being articulate, or has this inner desire to share knowledge with others that you and I seem to have. But people do have other skills. There are tons of people who work with Midwestern Marx who don't want to do that, but they're good video editors, right? And it's just getting involved with a collective organization where you can put your own efforts and your own skills towards workplace and community organizing. That's the key. And everybody, like you said, everybody's useful. Everybody's got skills. And what they want you to feel is nihilistic and depressed, and I have nothing to offer, and there's no point. It's not true.
Oh, there's nothing.
You have something to offer, and there is a point.
Yeah, they want you to be apathetic and obedient and think that there's nothing possible, because then it's absolutely what. But what does history prove? It proves that exactly wrong, because every political economy, every empire is born, evolves, and dies. So it's not like nothing about this is permanent, and I love when these clowns, these double down clowns, want to talk about capitalism as being human nature. I mean, it's just like the silliest argument. And I always love to say, if you really believe that capitalism is human nature, then why do we need to be, have it enforced by a standing army? Why? If you really believe that greed is human nature, why do we need a political economy which enforces greed? You think greed is something that should be the driving force of our entire society? What sociopath are you? And I think we've got it backwards. We adulate and admire all the greatest sociopaths are the heroes of our society. The great man of history, like you said, they descended from heaven and they came to save us from ourselves. And it's a bunch of bullshit. No one is divorced from society. It's like the socialist meme. We all come from a society. I know I sound like a cliche, but it's true. What is that? The myth of primitive.
This is like a 2-page chapter in Capital where Marx says the capitalists claim, like you said, that they're the best in society. They're the most frugal and they're the most industrious. They're the hardest working and they know how to save. But really, they got their wealth through slavery, genocide,
imperialism,
the monopolization of resources, and the process of enclosure, meaning
violence,
forcing people off the land so they have to be wage laborers.
Right. The myth of primitive accumulation. This is what the capitalists tell themselves to feel good. It's they're in their fifis and they want to feel good about what they're doing, even though it's totally indefensible and it's ahistorical. They didn't get this by dint of their hard work. They got it through violence. and racism and murder and, just the worst, most depraved actions in all of humanity. And this is another way. I mean, you have U.S. senators spouting this nonsense as if it's, a foregone conclusion. Oh, the poor, that they just they have little because of their own sins. The rich attained their wealth through hard work and virtue. They didn't go to the strip bar on the weekend. They didn't spend all their money on booze and women, and they're not depraved. So it's all a bunch of bullshit. And I love that you brought this up.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
This goes back to what we were saying earlier about the base creating the superstructure. As capitalism and the Industrial Revolution are really, I guess, coming to full fruition, or coming to a much higher stage of development in the 1800s, you have these Horatio Alger novels come out, which is a capitalist cultural production that they're fiction books that push the myth of primitive accumulation that Rathbone was just explaining. They push this idea that capitalists got there through their industriousness and through their frugality, and you too can be a rich capitalist if you save enough money and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And these are the kind of intellectual productions that the capitalist class, this new bourgeois class, was pushing out as they were becoming the dominant economic class, the class that owned the means of production and controlled the politics. So again, we see how the economic base produces these cultural works that then trick us into supporting the economic base.
And if you aren't those things, that's your fault.
Yes.
If you were not successful, what did you do wrong? And that's it's all bullshit.
It is. It's sad to see Americans fall for it too, be temporary embarrassed millionaires.
Right. I love debunking all of these capitalist talking points. I mean, and another thing I wanted to ask you about while we're on the talk was just like libertarians in general, how they, everybody agrees that the government's fucked up. Like, why are they supporting all these awful policies? But nobody makes the ideological leap that it's capitalism. It's who owns it's the economy, stupid. It's the economy, silly. Like it all starts with the economy. Who, like we were talking about earlier, who owns the institutions? Who controls the senators? Who gets the bills passed? Who lobbies? And how do people not? They still want to defend capitalism. That's what I don't understand. You love capitalism. There's all these little ideological traps they put themselves in. That capitalism is good, but government intervention is bad. But meanwhile, government intervention is what dictates, capitalistic profit accumulation. And they want to say that, government is incompetent, but government is incompetent when it comes to socialist, when it comes to socialism. But government is perfectly competent in regulating capitalism, because that's as much as they want to admit. Capitalism, yes, there's all these monopoly. They want to say corporatism. There's all these little copes that they want to say. Corporatism, cronyism. There's all these words that disaster capitalism. There's all these little adjectives they want to place on the capitalism to not make the necessary conclusions. So you're saying that, okay, government is incompetent to, do things like agrarian reform, but it's competent when it comes to, regulating capitalists. It's competent when it comes to regulating capitalism. But it's just, I don't know how you have to believe two different things to be true, which are, mutually exclusive, I guess. I don't know. I'm just riffing here, but.
It reminds me of my debate with Trash Bin, Prax Ben, that was 3-4 years ago, and I didn't have the same level of theoretical knowledge I have now. I probably read volume 1.
Well, it's a good thing that you don't need it when you're talking to Trash Bin.
Exactly.
You don't need any of that.
No, I didn't need it, because what I did was I read Libertarian Theory, which I quickly learned that Trash Bin had not read himself.
Right.
And then the question I kept having was, okay, everything's about the government. Who controls the government? the corporations, the private sector. So what? How is private sector good, government bad, when the government's a tool of the private sector? And then our whole debate was just running around in circles. You know,
No,
they'd
the
be like,
libertarians.
capitalism good.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
They would just say capitalism good, government bad,
Right.
and I'd be like, well, who controls the government?
Exactly.
It was just, well,
Yeah, they say government. Government shouldn't have an army. They want
Right.
Walmart to have the army.
yeah,
They want
just
Amazon to
privatize.
have its own army. Then they'll really have the free market. The fact that the free market isn't free enough right now. There needs to be less regulation after 40 years of neoliberalism, after all these austere policies of deregulation, et cetera, et cetera. No, the government needs to do even less. It's
And
silly.
we just need more Blackwaters. If we have more Blackwater mercenary groups,
Yeah.
that'll fix everything. 'Cause,
Private
that-
military contractors. That's what we need.
Right, that's the problem. Is we have the actual U.S. Army right now. If you made them private and called them something different, everything would be better.
Yeah.
And they also think monopolies wouldn't. They say that every monopoly that's ever formed has been because the government got involved in the market. Like, are you guys insane?
Yeah.
Capitalism always dialectically creates its opposite, monopoly, or free competition creates its opposite, monopoly. The market starts as free competition until someone can control it.
Right.
Now, after years of capitalism's development, every friggin' market's controlled. There's no free competition, but then they just say, well, that's the government.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we get rid of the government,
The
that'll
government
all
is
go
the
away.
scapegoat for everything. Is the scapegoat for everything. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like it's a silly argument to make, and I like when people make it, honestly, because I like demolishing them.
Absolutely.
But libertarians believe there's a crisis in the lack of selfishness in the USA. Yeah, the virtue of selfishness. Yeah, this is.
Oh,
And another thing is that a lot of times, from what I understand, Nixon was not pretty adept with the economy. Like, he didn't really have his understanding of the economy and market principles or whatever was not very good. But this is an interesting concept that a lot of times politicians will adopt whatever the current fad is, whatever just is in vogue, And at that time, it was like Milton Friedman, And even though his ideas were completely ahistorical and not they're self-serving, you can get politicians to adopt them, and even if they're not, what's the word? Even if they're not actually rooted in reality, I guess you could say.
it's a dogma.
Dogma. That's the word. That's the word.
Religion.
Even if they're dogmas, right? Yeah. So, and a lot of times that steers the course of history. It's like we adopt all these fake ideas, and then they become really consequential about our society, and people actually suffer because of them. But it's it's wild, man. It's fucking wild.
I had an Ayn Randian economics professor. That's a dogma too. I mean, Milton Friedman's neoclassical economics is its own kind of dogma, but objectivism, or the virtue of selfishness, there are people who really believe if everyone acts as selfishly as possible, then everything will work out the
That's
best for the collective.
insane.
It's
Because-
fucking wild.
Yeah, and you
The
know what else?
religion.
You know what else is insane about that is because no society has ever organized that way. Societies are organized communistically, and it's another thing that David Graeber brings up, which I thought was interesting, is that capitalist firms, quite ironically, behave internally like communist enterprises. And if you'll hear me out, the fact that workers depend upon other workers in the supply chain, nobody's if your fellow worker needs a wrench, you're not hey, what are you going to give me for that? Because you're working towards a common goal, the creation of a commodity or whatever. And societies are like that as well. We all depend on other people. You can't not. And I forgot where I was going with that, but
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Capitalism is cooperative production for private accumulation.
there you go.
And cooperative production is what allows humans to rise above other animals in the first place. It's the fact that we say, hey, we're smart enough to communicate
Yeah.
and work together. Let's form into these little groups.
Right. But no, that's scary. We don't need, no, that's, we got all that, and then now we're just going to live in our little bubble, and we're going to tell ourselves feel-good stories about how we're better than the public. I remember being a kid and just always being told, like, I just always had this really bad idea about the public. The public is like, ugh, you know, oh, we should look down on the public. Well, who is the public? It's like, we are the public, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly. It's interesting.
I can ramble. You see, I can rant.
You're good. I like it. I do have to head out here soon, unfortunately.
Yeah, same.
But this has been a fantastic conversation. I think we should definitely do this again. I will.
For sure.
Next time, though, let's do it on yours, and then I'll stream it on my TikTok to try
Cool.
and bring new people.
That'd be great, man. Well, I want to say thank you for having me on, and I'm glad we got a chance to finally do this. It's been,
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I know we're both busy, but
Yeah.
hopefully we can do this more. This was a fantastic conversation, and really excited to hear that you haven't fallen for the terminally online smears against ACP, and you're all down for organizing workplaces, organizing communities like we want to do. So hopefully there will be more opportunities to work together too.
that'd be cool, man.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to plug or say before we head out?
I just want people to hate capitalism as much as capitalism hates them.
Yes.
That's it.
I love it. I love it. All right, everybody. Subscribe to Rathbone on YouTube. Follow him on Twitch. All that good stuff. We'll see you on the next stream. Adios.
Bye.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege.
Okay, well, we finished. That was that. That was it. Yeah, I'm tanky. Can you believe that? Can you believe that shit? Oh, I'm coming. I'm coming soon. We're going to get together. Y'all follow Homeless Romantic. Not hopeless, but homeless. Okay, I'm gonna put the sound alerts back on. Oh look, there's the chat. What's up, baby? Batty. Oh shit. I definitely turned my mic off. What? Oh shit, it's 4:20. Okay, so you think you're better than me because you're on the West Coast. That's cool. I didn't realize I was dealing with a gangster. A West Coast gangster, West Side up in this bitch. I'm just about to smoke. That was fun. I'm trying to do a smoke break with the chat. I'm just trying to hit the group chat. Oh, you smoked it. Did. Oh, okay, never mind. Oops. I'm pretty sure. Okay, there we go. Guys, I need to take a break. Just did a 2-hour yap fest, so I'm just gonna smoke this with you guys and then sign off. But I appreciate you guys hanging out for a little bit. Glad we got to do that. Thanks for sticking around. Time. I need to touch grass. I need to go outside. There's a lot of people that need to touch grass, you know? Lots of people need to, like, live in the real world. Name it, man, you better watch yourself, okay? Baby brains. We got Buddy Head up in this motherfucker. I know, I was talking to the homeless romantic. Why you gotta be yelling and all of that? Oh yeah, Rathbone? Are you talking to me, Eric, like that? How dare you come at me all sideways? You can touch your own ass. How about that? Over there. Yeah, Buddy Head up in here. Y'all follow Buddy Head. Shout out. Shout out again. Shout out time. Am I not streaming on Twitch? Oh no, I am. I can't access my live for some reason. That's fucked up.
I don't know what that means, bro. I swear to God. I don't know what the fuck a fascism is. I don't know what the fuck that is.
Like, what the fuck? What's up, Saeed? Saeed's up in this bitch, too. So we do have a party. So there is a party going on. You don't want to be a drama pervert, but do you think Hassan is a lib? No, I don't. I think your mom's a lib. You just popped by to see if I could borrow a cup of free Palestine making a bundt cake. Haha, that's funny. We partied and it got wild, a lot of ISIS bashing for some reason. Okay. Is that what happened over here? I'm sorry I wasn't paying attention as much to the chat. I saw we got like some anonymous gifted subs, so I just want to say whoever that was, like, thank you so much. I appreciate all of that. Maybe you should look into the state corporate complex. Like, I think you guys need to, like, you really need to calm down. I will automatically imagine them saying that. You know, we're all here to learn, okay? Look, brother, our whole life is a bad path, okay? Level 3 potato. Our whole entire society is going down a bad path. You understand me? You feel me? Like I say, let's focus on the criminals. Let's have some class consciousness in our analysis of the society that we're living in and understand, okay? Like, I'm over here reading about fucking Amazon, okay? Why don't you guys ever think about making a video about Amazon going down a bad path? Do you know what Amazon is doing? Amazon is far more powerful than any communist party. Way more consequential, okay? Yeah, the content police is here. Thank you, buddy head, the voice of fucking reason.
I hope that Benjamin Netanyahu
Like God.
burns in hell.
I mean, do I need to pull up the PowerPoint? I mean, do you guys not understand the world that you're living in? Okay? We have a monopoly happening across all swaths of industry, and Amazon is largely responsible, okay? And there's all these different ways that they do this, okay? They use tying arrangements. They use predatory pricing, okay? All right? They tie their Prime program to their fulfillment by Amazon, okay? If you want a seller, if you're a third-party seller and you want to sign up for Prime, you're tied and tethered to fulfillment by Amazon, which is another fee that they tack on. Amazon Web Services. Literally, the CIA uses Amazon Web infrastructure. So does all companies in the economy. The Alexa Fund, that's basically its own venture capital startup. Like Amazon is all of these things. It's a publishing industry, it's a venture capital firm, it's a fucking book publisher, it's a logistics network, it's a computer technological infrastructure, it's a marketplace, it's a private label device maker. You know, it's all these things. AWS's biggest customer is Netflix. You can't chill without it. Yeah, you're baked in. You're tied and tethered to Amazon, okay? Why are we not talking about that? You think our big bad nemesis is a communist party? Like, you guys need to grow up, touch grass. You live in a fantasy world. You've intersectionalized yourself into a fragment of a shell of your former self. Okay? You've all outthought the room, okay, is all I'm saying. You know what I mean? That's all I'm trying to say. Who should we raid out to? Who should we raid now? Anybody got some ideas?
There is a list.
We should raid Palestine, no doubt.
This list.
I'm hungry, and I just filled my diapers. So I need to take a break. Who can we raid to? Who is live right now? Why doesn't it ever tell me who the fuck is live? Stop hating Israel. It's time for love. Guys, stop hating the Nazis. We need to love the Nazis.
I
Midnight
hope that
Sumo?
Benjamin
Okay.
Netanyahu burns in hell.
27 Club is a douche. So we don't fuck with them.
I hope that Benjamin Netanyahu burns in hell.
Thank you for the follow. "27 Club can suck my dick." Absolutely. Big time, though. He sucks. And Buddyhead's absolutely 1000% correct. Oh, wah, wah, wah. Who is Haz and Hinkle? I mean, what are you talking about? I really don't give a fuck. Like, go write... Stoicite, you can go write in your diary about how I had a conversation with Eddie Liger. And I hope... Or you make a video about how we had a conversation. And I hope that, you know, it's a big revelation for you. Like, I'm over here talking, like, learning. I'm reading books. I'm trying to put it all together. I'm making political propaganda. I'm using my entire platform to try to advocate for working class values and principles, okay? So, some virgins are mad that I'm not pure enough. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. I hold the criminals accountable, all right? I'm more concerned with how things actually are. All right? Let's quit the fucking purity bullshit. Like, yeah, no one likes... Yeah, go make better shit. No one likes content police. Then go be the fucking media. Why are you hating on the media? Go be the media. And if you really think in a world dominated by CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, George Soros and Rupert Murdoch, if you think that, you know, me and who I associate with, the likes of Eddie Liger Smith or Jackson Hinkle or whoever, like, you have lost the plot. You've lost the plot. You're cooked. And you're never, it's like you're whenever you hold ideals up to the material world will always fall short. Like, no, so you're just masturbating at this point. So that's great for you that you don't have to make a move because it's all bad. So what's the point? Yeah, get over it. For real. What is, like, people... I love it, though. It's so... It just shows... It's really... You're projecting more about your own insecurity. You know? You have a problem. Like, you're so... It's like so delusional. Yeah, we want to free Palestine here. Like, so glad that you won the Oscar in your bathtub last night. Everything gets picked apart. I know. You're so right. It's like you're just like
struggle session right
I'm
out
trying
of
to
communist
think
China
about it
or
in like
South
a-
Africa. This is serious tyranny.
No, I'm not speaking to you, Stoicite. I'm speaking, it's not you, it's like this, it's things that people, you know, keyboard warriors say. Like, and it's like Buddy Head says, like, go do it then. Go make your fucking page. Go, you know, do it better than other people then. Do it the way that you want to do it then. Like, show us a better way. Otherwise, you're just masturbating. Right. Be compelling then. If this isn't being done in the way you want, shut the fuck up and do it yourself. Saeed, we thank you. Thank you for hanging out for a little bit. I appreciate you. I know that you gifted some subs, and we appreciate that. I appreciate that. So thank you, friend. Tone policing comrades instead of doing based agitprop. Yeah, and I mean, the bulk of my, let people decide, like, that's the other thing. Just like, who cares? Like, let people come to their own conclusions, share about it, talk about it. The conversation that I just had is not happening on CNN. It's not happening on Fox News. It's not happening on the major media that we're, that's largely shared. Like, these ideas that we're expressing are outside the terrain of acceptable ideas. And, I'm still like the bulk of my, work is focused on, like I say, the actual criminals, the actual culpable institutions. And that's why I'm striving to understand it more and to become better equipped, whether it's ideological warfare or if it's actual, like, material, like, what can we actually do to hurt and dismantle the capitalist mode of production. And, I don't see much utility in punching left or right or down. And we have to stay razor sharp focused on the actual people that wield institutional leverage over society. So that's what I'm going to live and die on that hill, okay? So anyway, yeah, well, Eric of Texas, it's like, exactly, you don't even know who this is, and why are we talking about him? And if you want to talk about rightist, anti-revolutionary thinking, look to the institutions that govern our society, okay? That's where we should be focused on. You want to talk about anti-revolution, you want to talk about rightist, let's talk about the IMF, let's talk about the World Bank, let's talk about the Senate, let's talk about Amazon. We live in economic fascism, motherfucker. Wake up. So that's... Y'all got me fucked up, alright? Y'all got me fucked up. Like, this is why I don't fuck with y'all, chat. This is why I don't fuck with y'all. I'm serious, like... I know I need to go breathe. 1, 2, 3.
What is an example of a fascist?
Yo! I got this. I got this, okay?
Florida. My cousins graduated there. It's not.
Y'all got me like so fucked up. It's wild that y'all would do that. Is what I'm saying.
What does a fascist mean? It means you are a far right authorization on ultra-analyst, political ideology movement characterized by dictator leadership, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition. So I don't know what that means, bro. I swear to God. I don't know what the fuck a fascism is. I don't know what the fuck that is. Benito Mussolini and Giviante Gentile and Jason Stanley. Like, who the fuck are these people, bro? Never heard of my fucking life. What is an example of a fascist? Yo! What does a fascist mean? It means you are a far right authorization on ultra-analyst, political ideology movement characterized by dictator leadership, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition. So I don't know what that means, bro. I swear to God. I don't know what the fuck a fascism is. I don't know what the fuck that is. Benito Mussolini and Giviante Gentile and Jason Stanley. Like, who the fuck are these people, bro? Never heard of my fucking life. What is an example of a fascist?